Today we'll be doing the Scoia'tael tier list for all the cards in Gwent. Took a little break since the other tier list to, do some decks when the Balance Council came out, but now we'll go back in and finish up the series for this year. As always, we have the excellent tier for the best cards in the faction. These are the cards you often see played or build decks around because they're really, really good. Not quite as strong as the good cards. These are solid. They're good options. You can play them in decks. They're just pretty good. They're good cards. It's kind of in the name. Not too elaborate there. Okay cards are ones you might consider sometimes. Usually the ones above are better. And specifically for bronze cards, these might be cards like you consider like a what of maybe, something like that. Niche cards are either really hard to rank because they have a very unique effect, which is sometimes incredibly strong, but sometimes really bad, or they're just too specific, or they don't fit neatly somewhere else. We'll get to some examples of that later. We have weak cards, which are ones you probably don't want to be playing. They could be seen play with a buff potentially, and they're just not quite good enough. Bad cards are just bad. You don't want to play them pretty much ever. But there's still hope, right? Like you could maybe see them be buffed once or twice, and then they'd be good. And then we have meme cards. These are just unplayable unless you're trying to have fun with it for some reason. These are cards that either are unbuffable to being like some combination of being like a 4-person special or something like that that can't be changed to Balance Council, or that would just require so many buffs it's never going to happen, or just like has some kind of design problem that makes it not really usable. And yeah, that is the tiers. Let's get into the cards here. We're going to start off with the golds. I believe I updated all these images to the last Balance Council, so it should be all the updated cards. If not, I apologize, but we'll probably catch that. So let's begin here with Aileron. Pretty much only good if you're playing an elf deck, although you can play here in any deck running the elf scenario because it will spawn the 2 Deadeyes plus the Vernasiel's Commando plus the Waylay will give you an extra elf that's 4. You'll need 1 more, which you would have had to trigger the scenario. So if you're playing a scenario deck, you can just run her with like Feign Death and like Feign Death Harmony's a thing, stuff like that. I think overall she's a very good card. I will give her debating between good and excellent here. A lot of how good she is comes down to the elf scenario making so many elves, make her very easy to use and non-elf decks, but she gives a lot of the elf decks what they want, which is round 1 control. So I think I'll put her up here for now. She's very strong. Yeah, I do like her being an excellent. She comes out early. She's very cheap for a card that comes out of your deck at 7, and she gives you a lot of what you want in those decks, which is early round tempo and control. Aglace is pretty okay or good. I'm going to give Aglace pretty good. She works well at what she does, which is the big payoff to the hand buff deck. She's a good card for that. She doubles up your hand buff boosts. That can make her pretty incredible. She has other applications as well. You can use the fun one, if you ever see it, is you can use Renfree, and Renfree will create the 2 stratagems, and you can make like 2 tactical decisions to put on her, which will give her an extra 20. Which is pretty funny as well. But she's overall a very good card. At 9, she's actually pretty cheap. You can do Golden Necker hand buff. And I think overall she's pretty good. Sorry, Doctor, you featured in a few comments here. But we're going to have to exit the GOG for a second here because we're making this. There we go. Next up we have Angus. He's excellent. Angus is kind of the thing for the Deadeye Elf deck. Makes all of your Deadeyes 1 extra point. That is effectively carryover. You're going to make probably, let's see, you've got the 3 leaders, you've got the 2 off of scenario, you've got Vernasiel making them if you're not going to do her melee, which you want to do her melee. You got the deception. It's a lot of carryover, right? There's a lot of carryover this gives you. So it's really, really good. And the fact that you can make it always start in your hand is incredible. Aquin, right up here too. Aquin is one of those cards where if you don't kill her, you will probably lose the round. And she's also giving you carryover in the form of making your Naiads into nature cards, which will proc the symbiosis. So very, very strong. And yeah, just one of the best cards you can do is just make a symbiosis deck, and Aquin just makes it really good. Next up, we have Barclay here. Gives all of your dwarves 1 armor. If they already have armor, gives them a point. Works really well with wide dwarves. I'm going to say he's pretty solid. Usually you see him in the Precision Strike dwarf decks, not necessarily the ones that run Brewer Monroe with the Mahakam Forge leader, because those decks don't tend to want to do the Barclay payoff quite as much. I think he's pretty good. I prefer the non-Precision Strike dwarf decks, but that doesn't make them not good. I think I'll give Barclay a good rating here. Pretty solid card. Uh, Barnabas. I'm gonna say Barnabas is a little bit weak. It's a shame. I like Barnabas. He works best in Golden Necker Harmony. The Golden Necker Harmony is not as good as regular Harmony or, well, any of the variations, right? There's regular, like I call it regular. There's Harmony, there's Corixus Harmony, there's Feign Death Harmony within. I think of all those, and you have Golden Necker Harmony. Golden Necker Harmony is the weakest. It is a fun deck, though, if you want to try it out. But yeah, I think Barnabas isn't quite a good enough payoff. You're getting 3 on 3 different CAGs. So it's technically a 14 for 8, which is pretty good, but usually he's only going to hit 2, and that's not so good. Although he is a gnome to trigger the Harmony 1 extra time, usually that's not that big of a deal. I think he's a little bit weak at the moment. Mullane, though, or not Mullane, Brienne, the Archer girls. Brienne is pretty good now. She's been buffed. So she's 5 for 5 with 3 1-damage charges. Very good for setting up Shiru. Very good for some extra damage to kill stuff. I'm going to give Brienne... I'm going to give her... I'm going to give her an okay. Brienne mostly would be played in a deck that's running Shiru as an option to help you set up this Shiru. She's pretty decent at that. I'm not saying she's the best card in those decks, but she can be played in them pretty effectively. And I really like Brienne. I'm trying not to be biased here. I think she's overall okay, though. I think there's usually something a little bit better you can do. She's not a bad choice. Next up here we have you. Brienne into Brayhen. Brayhen's a good card. It's good in the decks that want to play him. So, he has the destroy the guy at the end of the row. You only really use that with Movement Leader because Movement Leader can manipulate what the thing at the end of the row is. Specifically in Golden Necker movement, he gives you a tall punish you can run in the deck with some amount of control, and that makes him pretty good. He's good in that deck, so I think he'll get a good rating here. Beruver, boosting up all your dwarves that have armor specifically, usually following up a Zoltan's Company or something. Very strong effect. Is it strong enough to go in the top tier? Gives himself armor when you play him. Does lose 1 armor each turn. But usually gives himself enough armor that even like 3 turns of Brewer boosting is usually enough to win a game. Which is why locking Brewer isn't always the best answer. Because they unlock Brewer, he'll go off again, and that's usually enough to deal like a game-ending amount of points to you. I will put Brewer up here in excellent, I think. If you're playing like a Mahakam Forged Dwarf deck, super strong. Called for straight to S tier, or top tier, excellent tier, so we'll call it here. Straight to the top. Fantastic card. Tutors, gives an extra point, which helps you protect the thing you're tutoring. Is in nature, so it's in-faction synergies, as well as things like symbiosis. Fantastic card. Not much else to say there. Ciaran, I'll put up here too. Ciaran has movement lock on 1 effect. That is very good because sometimes you will move a card that has a row-locked effect, and having access to it in Scoia'tael, which means you can pull it off of things like the Call the Forest. This makes it really consistent. And sometimes you don't even need to lock a card, you just need to move it. And that's also really good. You also lock your own cards, which is kind of niche, but not unusable. But yeah, Ciaran's very, very good. Dana. Very good in traditional Harmony. Can be used as well as a hand buff enabler if you pull her out early, usually with Ihwara Quacks. I think Dana is going to go up here in excellent too. Such a strong card. Right? Usually you want to play her in Form 2, but if you're playing a hand buff type of deck, you can play her in Form 1, boost everything in your hand by 1 if you don't have a copy of, or a card with that tag on the battlefield, primary tag. And that's a lot of hand buff carryover. If you don't kill Dana, it's almost like Muta Generator. And then you have the round 2, where she just deploys, boosts, well, if you won around round 2 or 3, you know what I mean? She boosts up all your different tags, and then she gives the new ones more points. Very good keeping Chameleon alive. But also just super strong. Deception, giving you 3 Deadeyes. Those 3 Deadeyes, thanks to Angus, will probably be boosted. And it is a very good card. gives you a lot of those Deadeyes, gives you a way to do it without the opponent answering them, which is very useful. You can time its flip to when you want to do stuff. Very good. I'll put it in the good, I think. Very solid card. Dennis is also good. Yeah, Dennis is also good. Boosting adjacent units by their armor amount. You play them in specific decks that take advantage of having a lot of armor. Armor dwarves with often Simlos or, well, Simlos and the neutral armor's workshop, stuff like that. You have other ways to give your dwarves a decent amount of armor with miners, so it can be very useful. And very, very strong. You go Simlos, double workshop into Dennis, super good finisher. Dunka's okay. She's been buffed. The main issue with Dunka, well, let's think about this. We'll put Dunka. Think about Dunka. If she's really only useful for hand buff. Her hand buff is random, and she's 7, whereas Hawker Smuggler is 4, but she has the extra, or 6, or cheaper. Smuggler's cheaper. I think it's 5 now. But yeah, she's more expensive. She has that 3 damage order. She has the Veil, so you can't lock her, which means she has to be removed. But 4 with 1 armor is pretty easy to remove. I think she's okay. I wouldn't play her anything other than hand buff. And even in hand buff, she's not the best card. I think you would play her, though, just to have her. But I'll leave her an okay anyway. Next up, we have Ethne. Ethne's good, but not in the top tier. Devotion Symbiosis is not as good as Non-Devotion Symbiosis. And in Non-Devotion Symbiosis, you won't play her. So she's pretty much only played in the Devotion mid-range deck. The one that plays like Guerrilla Tactics Shuru. You can play Devotion Symbiosis. It's not a bad deck, just Non-Devotion is better. And she's pretty good in the Devotion mid-range deck. So we'll give her a good tier for that. I think she's pretty solid there. Eldain. Defining card for traps, like all-in traps. All-in traps is not very good. All-in traps is not very good. But it exists because of Eldain. I don't think that qualifies for our first niche choice here. So Eldain is massive if you're an all-in trap deck and you're long around with all your traps. That's usually not going to happen, but if it does, he's insane. And I think that traps in particular is a deck that's very meta-dependent. In certain metagames against heavy control, you can actually get your traps to just dominate because the opponent has to hit cards and you're not giving them anything to hit. And there, Eldain and traps becomes very good. In other decks, or other metas, there's a lot more mid-range. People are fighting a lot for round control. Traps really suffer. So I think niche makes a lot of sense here, both because the deck's meta-dependent and because the deck's kind of completely reliant on him. And he really needs some setup there. But yeah, niche makes sense to me here. Next up, we have Elias. They're okay. You destroy an allied unit and spawn 2 Deadeyes. Not too bad for your Deadeye deck. That's 13 points. -1 if you're struggling 1 power card. Usually it'd be like Simlos or Avlok Sage, something like that. Pretty decent. There's a lot of cards you want to run in those elf decks, though, and a lot of them are expensive, so it's kind of hard to fit them in there. But they're not too bad if you do. I think they're a fine inclusion, but probably not the best one. Etriel and Morelga. Okay, these two have to go together. Let me just grab them. Etriel and Morelga. This is alphabetical, so you'd think I could find stuff. Oh, there we go. So, Etriel, Morelga. They do, respectively, they do 3 damage. They each do 3 damage. One does 7 if the other one's on the board. One does 3 to the adjacent cards if the other one's on the board. So one's higher single target damage, one is higher total damage, and it depends which one you play first. Overall, though, you're getting 11 points on their value here. Plus, if you're going to go with the max value on their deploys, 12 damage, which is a total of 23 for 12. Quite good. The problem is the opponent will often kill the first one. Morelga is a little easier to keep alive first if you play her first. And we should probably swap the art so that they are making their picture correctly. Probably should do that. But yeah, overall, they're pretty okay. I don't want to put them in weak just because their damage is very good. And they actually have good value even without these synergies sometimes, particularly Morelga. 9 for 6 isn't too bad when 3 of its damage and you have a conditional upside. It's not something you'd want to play on its own, but the upside of having the Etriel is really nice. So I'm going to put them in okay. Not the best inclusions. Actually, I think I'll put... You know what? We're actually going to split these up. I think Etriel might need the power to match Morelga. No one plays these, I don't think. I think they're all right. So make me want to put them down here, actually. I wouldn't say they're weak. She might need the power. Yeah, no one plays it. I think we'll do this. They are a package deal. So we're going to put these two in weak together. I don't think Morelga needs it, but I think Etriel needs the 1 power. As it is, you pretty much always want to play the Morelga first, so the 6 keeps her alive. It'd be nice to have the flexibility of either of them being going down first. Yeah, so I think that's fair. I don't see them to play them. Eudora, one of the best thinning cards in the entire faction. At the start of the game, she thins herself out, and when you play one of your Zoltans, she will come with it. Thinning at the start of the game, or around 0 as I call it, is the best thinning in the game because it affects your starting hand, and it affects round 1 and 2. Because it's in your starting hand, so round 1, 2, and 3, you're thinning, your percentages for finding your cards goes up. And then it applies more tempo to the big tempo play you want to do, which is typically your Zoltan Warrior, or your Zoltan for carryover, or your Zoltan Scoundrel for finisher. All plays you want more tempo with, right? One's a big tempo play, you make the tempo play bigger. One's a carryover play, you make bigger so you can play it while farther behind on board. And one is a finisher play, you make bigger. So her interaction with all the Zoltans is very, very good. And she just thins herself out, which is incredible. Fall is also excellent. Finding any of your nature cards. Nature cards are the unique category for the Scoia'tael ones. At least a lot of them. Excuse me. And that is very good. Specifically finding options like Call the Force just means Fall can find any unit as well if you have that set up. And just being able to find your cards is what you want to do. And she's very, very good at doing that. And she's only 7, which isn't too expensive. That being said, I think most of the in-faction tutors are 7 now, but that still makes them very good. Feign Death is a top-tier scenario. Very, very strong. You can use it in decks that aren't elf-based, that just play a couple of elves. Things like we saw recently Invigorate Harmony, where you use this early to thin out the Aileron and get a bunch of tempo. You can play this in other decks that have a similar plan, where you want to win round 1 for round 3 combo. I've seen it played with the Armorer's Workshop, Simlos, Denisk decks. You can do a lot of stuff with this. And at 13, it's not that expensive a scenario and does quite a bit. Gives you an engine, 2 tokens, and then the Waylay, which you can combine with a deploy elf to do more damage and finish something off. Very useful. Not even to mention all of the Waylay decks that you want the extra Waylay spawned from this for. Next up, we have Fegus. Fegus is the worst defender in the game. Yeah, he's just the worst. I don't think you ever need Fegus. Here's the thing with Fegus. We're going to drop him here for a second. Might not be where he ends up. If you think about all the defenders, Northern Realms has stuff they want to protect, right? You've got stuff like Voltist. You've got stuff like Siege, Muted Generator, Leticia. There's cards you really want to protect with in the faction, right? And monsters, same deal. You got your Wish's Sabbath nonsense, right? You want to do stuff with Cave Troll. Nilfgaard, you want to protect things like the Cultist scenario, your Hefty Helga. There's cards that are very, very impactful and protected. And Syndicate, you have things like your Forgotten Treasure scenario with Gudrun. You've got stuff that you want to put behind, like Townsfolks. In Skellige, you have things you want to protect as well, like Arnagod Sucrose. Your really big cards that you might be able to get with a Olaf combo, say, or your Messengers from the Sea. You can go really tall on Melusine, things like that. In Scoia'tael, there's not really anything that justifies you running the Fegus. And even if you did, Fegus is the worst defender because it's the easiest to kill. It doesn't have any upside, really. The moving itself is kind of nice, but you never need Fegus. Especially at 10. I think Fegus is actually, not good. Part of it is there's things you don't really... Part of it is you don't care about protecting your cards necessarily in this faction as much. And part of it is he's just the worst defender. But I just don't think you need him anywhere. So I think we'll put him down here. You know what? We'll be fair. He's not actually weak. There's just nothing that wants him. Maybe if you're playing something with Francesca, who we'll get to, you want a Fegus, but yeah, we'll just drop him in niche. I don't think there's anything that really wants to play him in this faction, unless you're playing some kind of crazy deck. Maybe with your Armor's Workshop deck, with maybe Elven Seers behind something, but yeah, no. I'm going to put him in niche. I don't know what else to do with him. Villavandrel, very good. Very flexible. If you just play him at 11, you get a 5 provision nature, or special, which is typically going to be like Rebuke, Bountiful Harvest, and the, what's it called? Backup Plan. All very good cards. All very, very good cards. Makes him good. And the important thing is you buff him to 7, typically by playing him with the Isengrim's Council. You will get Shaping Nature, which is very high value, specifically in Symbiosis decks. Overall, good card. Also very good for making Zoltan's Company. If you can make him do that, that's very good for the Dwarf decks. They love doing that with him. Call the Force into him, get second Zoltan's Company out. Really helps you get all those long round setups. I think he's a very good card. I think good is good there. We have Forest Protector. Now, Forest Protector is very similar to Villavandrel. He replays one of your specials, kind of like Villavandrel, giving you another card to play. He's 1 more point, but he has none of the combo potential of Villavandrel, none of the flexibility early in a round, right? If you haven't played your specials yet, the Force Protector won't really do much, which is why you almost always see Villavandrel picked over Force Protector, which means I'll give it an okay. Like, Force Protector is an okay card. I just think the stuff above, specifically Villavandrel, just is better. And you can't put them in together, usually there's not enough space. Francesca, good for Golden Necker decks, because you can make a second one, which is hilarious. Also pretty good just for duplicating stuff in specific decks that like maybe want to hit a second copy of Heatwave. If you Oneiromancy with her out, you'll Oneiromancy a special, you duplicate that special. Pretty solid card. That being said, very specific in what she wants to do, and often will get removed. That being said, she does have Veil, so removing her is very costly most of the time. I don't know there's that many decks that want to play her. But at 9, she makes a very strong upper end threat for Golden Necker decks. Things like Alzer might want her. I'm going to give Francesca... I'm going to give her an okay. But I will note I'm not too familiar with the Alzer decks that might want to play her, the Alzer Golden Necker decks, or with some of the other ones. So I might just not have the experience with her to properly rank her. But I've usually found putting her in the decks that after using her, I would want something else instead. That's just my personal experience with her. Maybe she's a good card. You guys let me know. Phyrexian is good in Symbiosis, or not Devotion Symbiosis. Also good in mid-range Devotion. Yeah, we'll put him next. We'll put him good alongside Ethne. Go in the same deck. Both do similar things. Give you a long round threat. I like that. Mating Season, very, very strong card. Let's put this up in excellent. Now, Frog Mating Season is worth 10 points on its own if it's uninterrupted, because you immediately, and 12 total. So you play, it's 12 for 8, but 10 the turn you play it, because you get 2 of the Vitalities triggering and 4 frogs, and 1 of the Vitality trigger naturally. So it's 3, 3, and 4, that's 10, and next turn you get another Vitality on each. But it also triggers all of your other Vitalities. It also has incredible synergies with movement because of all the frogs moving around. It has very good synergies with other things that spawn a bunch of Vitality and specifically Symbiosis, as well as random neutral cards, like the one that gives all of a Dwarf and Elf, a Witcher, and a Beast +4. You know, that good old card. We'll get to that one later. We'll get to neutrals. But yeah, it's so many synergies, so much value, and it helps accelerate your other Vitality values like putting this next to cards. It also goes wide instead of tall, which is very good. Very good for synergizing with decks like that want to go wide. Things like Great Oak, things like Gezeros. Just incredibly synergistic card. Gabor is going to go in the weak tier, unfortunately. He's not a bad card per se, and he isn't the worst card. However, at 6 for 9, you're getting a Resilience Engine, which is fine. Immunity Gabor is terrible because, 6 is already enough. He's probably not dying to most removal. And if he's triggering once when you play a Dwarf each turn, Hypothetically, you could play 9 dwarves, he'd be 15. That's not going to happen. You're probably playing like 6 dwarves, and 12 for 9 is not worth it. You have to be playing him for the resilience, and there's better resilience to do than Gabor, which is why he's going to fall down here, unfortunately. Next up, we have Gaten. Pretty strong card. Works quite well in the Golden Necker movement decks as a finisher type thing. Gives you a whole bunch of points. And just a good card. Good card there. Not much else to say about it. Does require you have a bunch of cards on the board. Mating season, fantastic way to set that up. And then obviously the other thing to note here is you can manipulate, if you manipulate what card he moves first, because it's, across the board, left to right, whatever he moves first, if that card is, say, a Brock or double Fauna Sentry that gives +1 to the other ones to move, it'll still trigger that way because they'll be in the range when they move. So you can manipulate him to do some stuff. Pretty good. Yorvis Gambit is okay, I think. I think the traps have better consistency options than Gambit. If you're going all in traps, Gambit might be alright, but I think that deck's not particularly good. However, I think it's not the worst card if you're trying to find specific traps early, like, what's it called? My favorite trap. Sticky Situation. That being said, it can have some issues if you don't have units out and you're playing heavy traps, because you need units in between your traps, or to have, play them on different rows. Because of the spring mechanic, so it can be a bit tricky to play around. I just think you're generally better off playing something different than the Gambit. Next up, we have Gezeros, who's pretty good now. 6 for 10, and then with his Adrenaline, he boosts everything on his row, or damages everything on the opponent's row, depending if he's melee or ranged. A solid card to include in a lot of different decks. See him in some Symbiosis decks, you see him in Movement decks. If they're not playing Golden Necker, see him in Devotion decks. So overall, I think he's pretty good. Gord. I'm going to put Gord in excellent, I think. Very strong finisher card. Is capped at 12, so most you're getting is 15 for 7. That's extremely good value. He has a couple of very good synergies, specifically in Scoia'tael with the Isengrim's Council, which we'll talk about when we get to Council. But he's very consistent to find, and very good payoff to a lot of what you already want to do in decks like Symbiosis and Devotion midrange. So, very strong card. Also can fit in Golden Necker decks that are playing a bunch of specials, as well as a finisher there, which is pretty good. And overall, just very solid finisher card. I would put him in good, maybe. He's not the best of the excellent, but I think he just makes it up there, because it gives you that big extra play you need in those decks. Oh, I don't remember how to pronounce this guy's name here, Mr. Trapman. I know what his name is. I don't know how to pronounce it. Ibathar or something. Anyway, he is pretty weak. He gets +3 when you spring a trap, I believe. Probably should double check on that before I say it. That's one of our deck lists recently. Let's go to the library. And let's just go here. Oops. Where is he? Scoia'tael. Let's go by last name. Ibihar. Yeah, I still don't know how to pronounce this. But yeah. When you play an artifact, it's the lowest power unit, so it does apply to non-traps. Usually you're playing in a trap-heavy deck. And overall, it's just not the best effect. You'd rather have something else most of the time. And it is nice he boosts the lowest powered ally, but typically in a trap deck, you don't have that many allies. And you're usually not playing many units the opponent wants to remove, so they're going to have removal to hit him with, which is an issue. But overall, it's just not the best. If he goes off twice, it's okay, but it's usually rather have another trap or something, you know what I mean? So I think he's not that great. Ida, kind of the same thing. Scoia'tael has its own purifies. It has 4 precision. A lot of the factions have a 4 for 4 purify. Scoia'tael's needs another elf on board to hit an enemy unit, but it's still pretty good to have, and usually you don't need the Ida. You'd rather have something else. Plus there's Dryad's Caress. A lot of options for purify in the faction, so Ida just doesn't quite make it. Just not enough value. And the 3 vitality as her alternative effect isn't really good enough, right? If you're playing her, you're not going to get that value there. She's just not quite good enough at the moment. Next up, we have Yorvith. Pretty good card in the trap decks. I've mentioned a few times I don't think the all-in trap decks is good, but you don't have to play him in an all-in trap deck. He's really good in trapper spam. By all-in traps, I mean like you play all the traps, you play like Sabretooth, no unit, and then you drop Eldain at the end of the round. The deck that plays the trapper, where they like seize an enemy unit and turn it into a Deadeye, that deck's a lot better than the all-in traps, I think. And Yorvith is really good in that deck specifically. I think I'll give him good. He's pretty good. This replaying impactful traps is nice. You can kind of think of him as giving you an extra 5 or 6 version card, which is pretty good. The unbuffed Gambit. Let me just remove that here. Quick break there to remove the Gambit before it got buffed. Must have put them in here by accident. Probably missed it because I typed one in as Gambit and one as Yorvith's Gambit. Anyway, next up we have the good old guy here, Isengrim. Isengrim is a good card in Elves. Going to boost all your elves by 1. Elves make a lot of elf tokens, so that typically is a pretty good effect near the end of the round. You can often actually get Isengrim to play for like 18 points, like hitting like 12 elves, which is pretty good. Actually, really good. Sometimes you don't have enough elves for him to be good, but he's usually going to get at least a few. And even if you play him earlier, he does boost himself when you play an elf after. Typically, you don't want to do that, but you can sometimes, like near the end of the round, like second to last card, if you have like Vernociel or something, or third to last with Vernociel Heatwave, it's not too bad. So overall, good card. Definitely good in the Elf Deadeye decks, but not the best card, I would say. Isengrim's Council is going up here. Council has a specific interaction with Gorge, so I'm happy they're next to each other. So Council lets you see an Elf, Dryad, and a Dwarf from your deck and play one. They're all random in the category, but typically you only have one Dwarf, which is Gorge, which means it always finds Gorge, or you'll only have like one Elf. For example, in a Dwarf Precision Strike deck, you only have the Philovandrel, so it always finds him. There's synergies like that you can set up, or in Symbiosis, rather, before he got changed. So there used to be things like that, and there still are. You can do things with setup on this, specifically with stuff like the Philovandrel. You can set up the Gourd, because it always plays the Gourd, also boost it by 2, which makes your finisher bigger, which is nice. And there's other ways you can use it in a lot of different decks. And overall, it is a very good consistency card, specifically because you'll end up with having like a deck that only has one elf or one dwarf, or often one elf and exactly one dwarf, which lets you find options with it. Very good consistency card because of that. I think it does warrant its spot up here. Maybe not as good as these. Nah, we'll drop it down a tier. I'll put it down here in good. It's not as good as Call the Forest, and it does require some deck setup. And sometimes it's bad if you have to play it early. It's a good card, though. I think good makes more sense than the excellent. It's good because of what it finds, right? Less so than what it is. Whereas this kind of finds anything. This specifically finds Gourd and such. Next up, we have Ithleen. Hand buff by 4 is not that hard to get. Now, there's a bronze that hand buffs by 3 if it's already boosted, which it will be because you're planning to play Invigorate. And that's a 4% bronze. I don't think Ithlee's good enough. I really don't think she's good enough. We just take a look here. Hand buff by 4 versus hand buff by 3 if boosted. You lose 3 points on the deploy and 1 point of boost for 5 provisions. It's just nowhere near good enough. She's way too expensive for what she does. Way too expensive, so I'm going to put her in bad. No hand buff deck plays her, unless it's like a Golden Necker one that's extra provisions or something. I've never seen someone play Ithleen. Oh, let's get this right. This is Dusk Aspect. Yeah, Dusk Aspect. Very strong Harmony finisher. Kind of same deal as Gorge for Harmony. This really big finisher. Usually it's going to be 17 points or so, 17 to 20, depending on how well your Chameleon got answered. Chameleons. A very good finisher card. And again, we're rating these cards in their decks they're played in. and we'll give them a little extra boost if they're in multiple decks where they're good. Right? We're not going to say like this is a bad card because you can only play it in Harmony. We're going to rate it in the Harmony deck, for example. We're also not going to rate the card by how good the deck is. Right? I'm not going to put every Harmony card in the same tier because I don't think that makes the most sense. That's like a deck tier list. Next up, we have Mysteries of the Lochfian. Very strong scenario. Very strong. Also very expensive. Arguably the best thing about this is the conversions you get. Because it lets you boost your Harmony engines the turn you play them. Usually you'll play Percival last. Percival will trigger this. The Percival will go to 6 with 2 armor. Very hard to deal with. I think I'm going to put this in excellent. I think it's a very, very strong scenario. Next up, we have the Horn. This is bad still. Very cool card. Not very good card. So I have Batter Week. What was it? If this was 6, would I play? It's 8 points. All right. The only thing with Horn is it flips and the opponent passes. So you can surprise them. That being said, it's just not enough value even if you surprise them. It's like 4 on each adjacent unit. If they're worried, they can just kill an adjacent unit before they pass. And even though it's 8 for 7, the value's so poor. Yeah, this is bad. I think even at 6, it would probably be bad. What's really holding it back from just having, other than its value, is a deck that would consider playing this at 6 is an all-in trap deck. And they don't have many units, so it's kind of hard to use there. You can't even transform with Eldain. You'd have to use the spring effect first, and then that's even worse. So I just think it's bad. At 5, it'd be very, very good, I think, though. So maybe it's never going to be good. Mahakam Pass is an excellent card. It has been nerfed, though. I still think it goes up here. When I said there's better carryover options than Gabor, this is probably the best one. So you play Mahakam Pass, you spawn a Dwarf with 4 armor. Dwarves have typically Barricade Synergy, so 4 armor typically gets you some value. You can stick it on an engine. If you get a Defender or a Giant Slayer, it's very nice. Sometimes it's just nice to have the extra armor. But really what you're doing is you're getting that tempering carryover on this. And what you can do with that tempering is usually hit like an Elven Seer or some kind of Dwarf that synergizes, typically an Elven Seer or something like that. Just having the carryover is good enough on its own, but it also protects an engine when you play the carryover. You can do extra setup with the Elven Seer, stuff like that. Very good card. Typically, you really want this in Shiro decks because it makes your Shiro able to go tall and really destroy the opponent's board if you need to on command. Sets up more gourd points. Sets up your Symbiosis because the tempering is a nature. Pretty sure. Should double check that one because that one never made the most sense to me. Yeah, it's not a nature. What is it? It is a nature. Okay. I had to reset my search there. Yeah, it is a nature. I was right because was right about that. So yeah, you can do that. Has some synergies there. Very strong card. Typically played in the Devotion Shiro decks, also in Dwarves, and less commonly you can see it in other decks as well. Decks with Elven Seer like this as well. If you're doing Elven Seer Workshop deck, maybe you run this as an option if you don't have the Simless combo to Workshop on the Elven Seer. Because you just play the Elven Seer, click this, and the opponent's not really going to do anything about it. Mullane? Or not Mullane. It's the next one. I just blanked on her name. Whatever. She's the elf girl who moves a unit each turn with Zeal Order. 6 for 6 with movement is okay. Moving things is okay. Typically only good in movement decks. And those decks don't really necessarily need her. Moving a card each turn, the idea is you're going to be moving something that does something when it's moved, right? You're going to move, say, a Brigade that does 2 damage when it's moved. So you're going to move your Treant Boar back and forth. So you get to 2 damage each turn. Things like that. You're not usually getting enough value out of that, though. It's typically like an extra 1 point a turn from using her. 1 or 2. That is easily interrupted. And it's not the best either, so I'm going to say she's only okay. I don't think she's the best card in movement decks. You can use her. She does boost things like Milva, set up your Gaten. Like, there's a lot of uses for her, but there's more uses on paper than you actually play her in the game. Usually, you just rather have an extra engine or something, maybe an extra Sentinel, an extra copy of the engine you're moving, something like that. So I think she's okay. Mullane herself, bad. 4 damage or 1 damage 4 times. 4 damage for 8. She's been buffed as well recently. Is just really bad. She needs to be cheaper, have more base power. Multiple buffs are needed for her. Not true at all about Milva Sharpshooter, though. A good card. Used in movement decks, typically with bombs as well. So you do movement with bombs, and then you play the dragons, and the whole time you're killing stuff by moving things with the movement. You move stuff, she pings it, you use her order to kill something, she goes back in the deck, so you can do it again. That kills something, it sets up more points in Synthesis Blaze. Just removes all the opponent's stuff so they can't play any cards. All their engines die. And at the end of the game, you just play a big finisher. Very good. I wouldn't say it's an excellent card, but I'd say it's a very good card. Milva. Regular form is also good for movement decks. Different movement decks. Not moving the enemy and killing them, moving your own cards for boosting them. Great synergies with things like the mating season with Gaten, and just gives you a whole bunch of points, especially in Golden Necker movement, which is where she's most commonly played, because Golden Necker movement is the best form of movement, in my opinion. That deck's not amazing, but she is a standout in it as a devotion or as a immune engine that goes very, very tall. Very good in that deck. The only thing to watch out for is at 4. You got to make sure she doesn't die to like a Lord Riptide or something with non-targeting effect that can get her the first turn you play her. But outside of that, she'll take all those points, go really tall, and you'll be really happy. And we put the runestone down in bad. Just kidding. I think all the runestones are meme. I think that's where I put the other ones. I actually don't remember where I put the other runestones. They're all in the same tier. This was 4 when I play it. It's an alchemy. It is an alchemy. No, I wouldn't. It's too random. Ooh, let's see. We've got more in here. 2 damage or a lock. Ciaran's just better, but sometimes you want both. That being said, not often you want both. She's going to be going the okay tier. She could probably use a power buff. Probably use the power buff here to be 6 like Ciaran. Get a little more variety there in the faction. But yeah, I think I'll put her in okay. Nah, no, she's go down here. She's weak. She really needs that power buff. I don't think there's really a warrant to running both. I've seen people do it, but just because people do it doesn't mean I think it's good. I think she's weak. I think she needs a buff. Probably needs to be 6 power, like Ciaran. Monroe is a pretty good card. Transforming your rowdy dwarves into dwarf berserkers is a very strong effect. It's effectively a +5 each time you do it if all the armor goes off. That being said, all the armor going off isn't always going to happen. And in order to get value out of a 10 version card like Monroe, you'd probably have to transform 2 guys and wait for all their armor to go off. Be like 16 for 10. You'd be pretty happy then. If he gets answered right away, you're not too happy. If they ping off the barricade, it's not always the end of the world. He does have barricade. Otherwise, it's a 2-turn cooldown instead of a 1. Not too bad. Pretty good. If you're playing a dwarf deck with Mahakam Forge in particular, you can really take advantage of using him in an early round to pressure the opponent into letting you have a long run Broover later. Because Broover is the scarier card. But yeah, pretty good. Then we have Lochfian. Okay, let's just make a quick change here. Quick change there, guys. Had to swap out the image for the Lochfian conversions. Same, everything applies still. Just putting the wrong image in there. Then we have adjustment here. I think it's going weak. I've been thinking about the runestones. I think we put the other ones in weak after reflecting. And I do think it might be okay at 4 because of Shoop and because of decks I want to play a bunch of specials. It's not as good as maybe other ones. But yeah, I'll consider putting it in weak. I think that makes the most sense. I want to throw it in meme, but I think if it was 4, maybe you would see some play. Next up, we have Novigradian Justice. Very good card. Dwarf decks love this. Gives you some tempo with that Cleaver's Muscle. Gives you some thinning. Typically find your volunteers or like a payoff card. Do I want to put it all the way up in excellent tier? And let's do what dwarves want pretty well. Gives you bodies on the board, like a little swarming, especially if you go with volunteers. Can find your payoff to having your wide board. Find your payoff to other stuff like a marauder maybe. I think I consider it a very good card. I don't think I'd put it in top tier. Oh, this Polly. Polly's bad. It's just the effect. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's compare this to something else for a second here. Deploy moving unit to the other row. An order, give 2 armor. Let's take a look at Dragoon. Moving it to the other row. An ally boosted by 2. Boosting by 2 is better than 2 armor because it will give you points even if the opponent doesn't get value into it. The only exception is dwarves that double payoff on the armor. Specifically, a dwarf like it has like double payoff on the armor too, not just like pay off the armor. Like if you move to Berserker, this will still give you the same amount of points. This is 4 for 4 versus 6 for 6 on Polly. Polly is way overcosted. Just not good. Needs to be buffed for sure if you're gonna play him. A card that got buffed and now is quite nice is actually going to be our boy Povko though. Povko is effectively 3 points a turn engine, 1 from Harmony and 2 from his order. Very strong option here. It is row locked though, which does hold it back a bit. But a very strong engine. Very good Harmony card. I think I'll put it in good. I don't want to put it in the top tier because it is row locked and it is often answered. And doing damage isn't the best synergy with Scoia'tael Harmony in particular. You're not going to usually say you're playing a deck that has a lot of damage cards, then the 2 damage proactive would help you get more reach on things like Rebuke or something. Those cards aren't typically run in the Harmony decks, so it's going to be hard to find that extra value. It's usually just points, unless you're pinging the same card over and over again. So a good card, I wouldn't put in the top tier though. Same with our gnome boy here, Percival. Very good card in Harmony. Does go quite tall. Does take time to get his value. You really want him to go off 4 times to get really good value. That's not too hard to. Usually you play him at the end of your mysteries, and then the convergence will trigger him once. It's a very dangerous card if left unchecked. So it's very good. I don't think it's quite a top tier. I don't think it's quite in line with these other ones up here. Maybe we're overvaluing CRN, but it's so useful. Pitfall traps, okay. Here's the thing with the traps. Let's talk about them. We kind of mentioned this when we did Nilfgaard with the fact that Jan requires you to have all these tactics. Angus requires you to have 4 traps to start in your hand, and you always want him to start in your hand. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna count that towards the ranking of the traps. We're gonna talk about the traps in and of themselves. They're like a hindrance to Angus, not like a thing we have to consider. We're just gonna kind of rank them on their own, I think. So that being said, Pitfall Trap is okay. You can sometimes catch your opponent off guard with it. Sometimes they'll play a really expensive card. But if they play like an Oneiromancy before they tutor any units out, it'll still flip your Pitfall Trap, and it'll miss. It'll hit like the random bronze they played the last turn or something. That's not very good. The Spring effect is surprisingly sometimes useful. 6 random damage if they've opened with a 6-card engine. Not too bad. But you're really trying to catch an expensive play from them. It's not the best trap, I don't think. Oh, let's get controversial. Let's get controversial. Okay, so Pendant. Pendant has one of the highest ceilings for 6 version card in the game. Fun fact, Muted Generator and Pendant released with the same provision value. One of those is now an 11, and one never sees play. Developers, I think, had the same idea for these. One of them just turned out to be way better. Just compare this to Muted Generator for a second. It's hilarious. Hilarious that they thought that would be a balanced provision count. Anyway, Pendant really has potential. Like, there is a lot of potential to Pendant. Played Pendant next before, especially with things like Mating Season. Mating Season in particular is by far the best use for Pendant because you target 2 units, they both get 8 extra vitality, and the frogs make it trigger faster. Even if you're not using the Mating Season to target things to trigger Pendant, you want the Mating Season in the Pendant deck to trigger all those vitalities anyway. Now, there are targeted cards. A note for you guys, things like Armorer's Workshop and Golden Froth that hit 3 units only target the middle one. So you don't get points in all of them, only the one you target in the middle. Still, there's a lot of potential here. The problem is Vitality takes a long time to get effect, like take effect. So that is an issue. And you're never playing this without a Golden Necker. You have to Golden Necker this out or else you're getting way too low tempo. Because it even doubles up on being low tempo. Because you play this, then you play a card that targets, then you wait for the Vitality. That's way too much waiting. So this has to come off a Golden Necker. That being said, I think it's niche. I don't think this card's bad. People always tell me this card's terrible. It's not terrible. Like, this card is very good in specific decks and specific setups. It's hard to make those setups work. And decks that play them are very hard to play in my experience, but they can be pretty strong. So I'm going to put this in niche. I think it's an underused card for sure. Hard to use, underused, not always good, but when it is good, it's really good. So I'm going to give this the niche tier. Corixis, good card. Good Harmony card. When I put this all the way up in the excellent tier, I think it's been known at this point that I'm not a fan of Corixis. I don't really like it. I think it's fine. I don't think it's a bad card. Just not my preference to play it in Harmony decks. But I'd rather have more control. That being said, it's not a bad card. It's very good in Harmony. I don't think I'd put it in the top tier, though. Unless you consider that you can make decks based around this with Johnny Sarah, like Unicorn Chironex. Unicorn Chironex is usually too expensive, though. Usually it's just Johnny Sarah. Then you can have extra relic triggers for the convergences. The reason I don't like it is you have to play Dana on the same turn. I'd rather play Dana on a water turn, to be honest, most of the time. Still, it's a good card. I think I'm leaving it in good. I'm debating between good or moving up to the top tier. I don't think it deserves the top tier. Reordain does, though. Reordain tutors you an elf and a trap, assuming he's played next to both of those things. Each one is played next to searches the other. Excellent consistency, excellent value, because you're getting 2 cards out of your deck at once. This is why you don't have Yorvis Gambit, because this searches an elf and a trap, so have 2 traps. And Gambit's 2 random ones, so that, well, you can make Yorvis Gambit not random, right? But who's really going to do that? Yeah, if you 6 or more, there's your choice, but that's still not great. Still, yeah. It's just really good consistency. And the fact you're getting an elf, you can get the elves that pay off having what you have on board. You can either get a setup elf, you can get your elves you need for your Waylay deck, you can get your Vanadane, you can get your Angus if you, for some reason, aren't playing 4 traps. You can get your Vernociel in round 3, get your Isengrim. Super useful, and you can replay it if you're playing the Heist deck, which just thins 4, and that's insane at that point. Very good card. Sabertooth is a not good card. Sabertooth is played in exactly no unit, whether that is traps or bombs with dragons. And bombs with dragons don't play him. It's usually only in traps because he has artifact synergy. That being said, those decks are bad, and even in them, I don't think Sabertooth is particularly good. So I'm going to put Sabertooth down here in the bad. At the start of your turn, it does 2 damage if your unit is on its own in a row. Now, theoretically, you can do 2 damage to 2 units, 1 melee, 1 range, which is 4 damage a turn. Theoretically, that is very, very strong, one of the strongest damage engines in the game. The problem is, your opponent will just play around that. They won't play things in both rows, so you have to move it to the other row. Then when it dies, you stop playing that row's value. They'll play cards like Spawn Duplicates, or just like a leader or something. It puts an extra card in the row. Extra unit, I should say. And in those decks, it's not great. He's so expensive. You really need him to hit, like, what's this? 8 damage. Just a lot to ask. Plus hitting the units. They'll play, if they have like Death Wish or something, or Armor, it just hits it. I don't think this card's very good. even in the decks it's played in. I think it's bad. I think there's a couple ways to buff this card. You can either make it bigger as a almost like a pseudo point finisher to the no unit decks, right? Because they'll transform back to 9, say, for example. It is base form unit, right? So it is buffable. Right? It is base form unit. Yeah, it is buffable power-wise. Had to double check that there for a second. Or it has to be like cheaper. I don't think it's very good though. Synthesis Blaze or Synthesis regular, not Blaze, is okay. Here we have to talk about dragons. So we don't have none of these have lineage, right? I guess we'll show off lineage. Just to explain this a little bit here, pull up a little bit of interaction. So lineage at the start of the game boosts dragons, self by dragons boost yourself by the number of dragons in your starting deck. This makes all of your other dragons 1 more point. All the other ones with lineage. So effectively, it's like a 13 for 9, but the 4 extra points are on other cards. It's fine. You're only going to play it if you want that extra lineage point, or maybe you're in that that no unit dragon type of thing, you want an immune card. It's all right. I wouldn't really play it though. I think having something else is often better, but if you really want the extra lineage point, it's not a terrible choice. The deer, call it the deer, is a spell, which matters sometimes for Elzer. I want to say it's got buffed and I have the wrong image here. Guys, I am actually right. This is 6. There is no 5. This card's really bad. It's carryover when you play 3 specials in the same round. You'd think that's fine, but unlike a lot of other stuff like that, it doesn't have a good deploy, right? It's just boost by 5. And it's not like Crow Mother, we get the crows. It's not like Flying Redanian or something comes out of the deck with the carryover. It just, you have to play it, and then you play this for 5, and it comes back in round 2 and 3. That's 11. Yes, the math says it's okay, especially if you bring it back around 1, 2, and 3. But I just don't like it. This card's F5. I'd maybe consider it, but it's too expensive. Scoia'tael Commander, excellent card. Not just for Harmony, but primarily for Harmony. If you have enough unit categories in your deck, or card categories, I should say, she'll pull out one of your units of a unit category you don't have on the board each turn. So you put a bunch of different unit categories of random, not random, but like 4 Persian bronzes in. She thins them all out round 1. She thins out 1 or 2, usually 2. The opponent passes. If they don't, you'll thin out another one, maybe even a third one if you go all 10 turns. But very good at thinning, very good at putting out points, very good at pulling out engines, things like movement engines with Dryads and Sentinels, just Harmony cards, just things that are good on board. And she'll pull out all those bronzes, then your deck out, give you points at the same time. She is immune, so very hard to deal with. Less hard for Northern Realms because the Boiling Oil interacts really well against her. Typically, the Boiling Oil can kill a card she pulls out in Purifier. So that's usually the one faction that gets rid of her pretty easily. But other than that, she's hard to deal with. And very good for thinning. And like I said, not only Harmony plays her, you can thin her out, thin stuff out in other decks too. If you want a round 1 thinning card with a lot of tempo because you have some type of round 3 combo you want to hit, a pretty good option to consider. Next up, we have Scoia'tael. I think she's good. Not just for the dragon stuff, she's pretty good in Harmony. Or not Harmony, in a Symbiosis, because you spawn the Dryad and you create a Nature's Caress off of her, which will trigger your Symbiosis, and has Vitality synergies. That's pretty good. Can make a Waylay as well if you're playing a Waylay deck. I think she's a pretty good card. I don't know if I'd put her all the way up here, though. She might fall into okay. No, she's definitely good enough to be up here. Yeah, we'll leave her up here in good. I think she's good. Shiru, where's top tier? Shiru is one of those cards where if the opponent has it, you must know they have it or you will lose. Right? You have to know they're running Shiru. Typically, that means if they're playing Guerrilla Tactics and you figure out it's not a movement deck, they're going to have Shiru. And you really need to play the entire game around the Shiryu. Like, them having this makes you play the entire game differently. Because if you don't play around Shiryu, they will blow up like 40 points in one turn. You have to play around it. That makes it very difficult to play those games. It gives them a very powerful round 3, especially in a long round if they have this plus ways to boost or damage your cards, which they will. And that makes it very dangerous. One of the most powerful cards in the faction, just for what it can do. Everyone's been blown out by Shiryu at least once, I would say. But yeah, it can be exploited. You can like make them play it early. Maybe you only have one card that's Shiryu range, a bunch of really small cards that are swarming, and he's boosted so you can't hit him. But you have to consider that when you're playing the entire game. Yeah, one of the most, I would say, matchup defining cards whenever you go up against a Shiryu deck. You have to know how you're going to deal with it. Very strong. Excellent synergies with anything that boosts, right? You've got your pass we talked about boosting it. You've got other ways to boost it, which we'll talk about in the bronzes. You've got the potentially even invigorate, but usually you use guerrilla tactics that boost it by 3. Usually getting this to 6 or 7 is enough to like wipe a bunch of units if you ping things down. So very good. Serpent Trap. It's okay. Where's the other? It's okay. Yeah. When the opponent plays a special, you destroy their highest card, or you can flip it, destroy their lowest card. Same effect as Manticore if you do that one. Imperial Manticore, rather. Pretty solid if it goes off and kills their highest card. But opponents will test for this and play around it. Some decks can't, like Ogreoids maybe you can get with this, but I would say overall it's only an okay effect. You're only going to play it if the other traps you don't think will be very good, or you want like a 4th trap for Angus, or all-in traps, but it's only okay, I think. Would I even put this in okay? I think it's weak. Yeah, I think I'm moving this down to weak. We'll revisit the traps later. Shaping Nature is pretty good. Used mainly in Symbiosis. It has good value, specifically on the Vitality option. 6 with 6 Vitality is 12 for 7. That's pretty good. And Symbiosis can take advantage of that Vitality very quickly, either with Mating Season or more effectively with the Naiad Fledgling's Order, where they just take all the Vitality into points. Very good use there. And it has Echo for more value. Very good in that deck. Not overpowering, but just a good card. And it's nice to have the Veil option in particular as well, because if you get poisoned, you can just use this for the Veil and block the poison, the second poison. So it has some flexibility there, which is pretty nice. And of course, there's the 9 with the 1-point token spawn, so it's like 10 total. That's the one you never want to take if you can avoid it. Next up, Sheldon. Good hand buff payoff. Good hand buff payoff. Where's Aglace? Aglace should be in this tier. I'd put it in the same tier as Aglace. Yeah. Doubles up on your hand buff by doing damage to the opponent. That's often better than the Aglace is going super tall, but will often not get as much value because if you get, say this is like a 24 Aglace, you get 44 points. Say if it's a 26 Sheldon, you're not getting 46 points because your opponent's card isn't going to be that tall. But you can usually get this to just remove a dangerous engine while play a big tempo card at the same time, which is good. Very good for the deck. Okay, let's put the best card in the faction on the tier list. I don't think that's any consideration either. I think this is by far and above the best card in Scoia'tael. Everything's been alphabetical so far, but I'm going to move Simlos to the number 1. And just, he deserves it. Simlos is the best Scoia'tael gold card. It is one of the most flexible cards in the entirety of Gwent, as well as being one of the best cards. It plays all copies of a bronze for your deck, not 2 copies, all copies, which opens up a whole bunch of decks that spam things like quad harvest, quad, or even higher than quad waylays. It thins 2 cards out of your deck, which in and of itself is good. It can find both copies of your nature and the neutral one that boosts by 10, the Equinox. People love doing that. Very good tempo play there. A lot of great options for Simlos. We've mentioned Armor's Workshop a couple times, mostly because we went through Dwarves, but that's not the most common use for him. Most common use is going to be Backup Plan or Harvest or Waylay. All very good. And just incredible card. It thins your deck, develops points, can use removal, can hand buff if you're doing harvests. Can do combos for winning the game with things like Workshop. Getting things like Backup Plan gives you enough control to usually kill something at 7 points. Very, very good. We've really fall here. Okay, let's talk here. Now, to be honest, I can't even remember her name. Give me a second here. Well, let's just take a look at the effect here. Gotta go by tag here. Not like the in-game deck deck search. This is better. Sarissa, yeah, I was not remembering that. Harmony, deploy 2 damage, then hand buff by 2 randomly. Death blow, hand buff, targeted. Harmony with 4. That does 2 damage. That would be a ranger. That also can poison. The hand buff doesn't really matter most of the time. And the death blow, who cares? It doesn't change the value. In order for this to be good, it has to be cheaper or higher base. Like, there's just not enough value. The value is just not there. And I would argue that even at 6, this card's still not particularly good. About 6. Do 2 with hand buff. Hand buff doesn't care because hand buff has better hand buff effects that are either more consistent, like Dunka, but still random, because they're not going to set up the death blow, or that are just more value with small hand buff. Now, this card's bad. I'm not changing it. I'm trying to talk myself out of putting it. I'm trying to talk myself into putting it here. I'm not going to. This card's bad. It really needs help. This and Milva are probably the cards that need help the most in this faction. Or not Milva, Mullane. Those two are probably the 2 worst. Next up, we have Sticky Situation. One of the more annoying cards, I would say. Very strong trap. You play this round 1. You always want to play it round 1, so you're running things like Avok Sage to find it round 1. And then the opponent plays a 4 power or less unit. It flips, and you get 4 points a turn on the things adjacent to it. Well, 2 on each, so 4 a turn. Grows out of control very, very fast. Some decks can play around it. Things, just like as a common example, something that has a bunch of big units. Ogoroids will not really care if you play this because they have a whole bunch of big units. True for a lot of monsters decks. Some decks that only play specials don't care either. But you can flip it and hand buff your hand as well, which makes it usable in Golden Necker hand buff as a 6 hand buff, which is better than Ithni. Although maybe you'd play her there. I don't think you would because you get this off of the Golden Necker, which is why it's so nice there. But yeah, it's good. I wouldn't put it in excellent tier now it's been nerfed. It's just a very good trap. Very good round 1 securing card. That's not where the card is. Next up, we have Scoia'tael. Also getting good. Very common to see this and Golden Necker movement as their 1 artifact. There's not as many Golden Necker Scoia'tael decks as there are in other factions, but this is often a card you'd pick to put in it. Even in Golden Necker Harmony, this is what you pick because it spawns a Witcher, which means you trigger your Harmonies. So you still pick it in that deck. It's like the artifact you pick for Golden Necker Movement and Harmony, which are the 2 most common Golden Necker decks. Not for Dwarves, though. Dwarves, I think you'd like pick Armory or something. But yeah, overall, good card. Getting that Witcher is nice. The 3 movement effects is nice for movement decks. They like that. Pretty good. Keep going back over there. No. Oh, is this Taliana? Very weird card. For those of you who don't know, I usually, by the way, for those who watch these tier lists, I usually don't pull up the cards anymore because there's so many. At this point, most people know all the cards do. And if you don't, there's this lovely Gwent library you can go to on playgwent.com. And we'll just pull her up, though, because her effect is one I don't think people are familiar with as much. So, shuffles an allied unit provision cost 9 less into your deck. Importantly, you can pick tokens with this. And then you can also play the top elf with deploy from your deck. So there's 2 things you can do. One, you can just shuffle back a Deadeye token in a Deadeye deck. like an elf deck, because your deploy elves are very impactful there. Things like Isengrim, Yorvith, and the Vernosiel. And you wouldn't play other ones unless you knew what you had in your deck at the time. And then she's order, spawn, and play backup plan, which is nice. That's a good order. And if she's doomed, she does damage. This only works with Heist. And if you're playing Heist, you're not putting her in because Heist is so expensive. You're doing something else to scam people with Heist. You're not doing this. So you're really only getting the deploy effect and the order. Now, one thing you can do is shuffle back Simloss and play Simloss again. If you only have one elf with deploy in your deck, or if you have none, I should say, and you shuffle back like a Simloss, you'll get him again, which has some potential. There's options here. Like there's a lot of combo potential with Teliana, or Telion, I guess there's no Ana. It's a very interesting card. We need to experiment with this more ourselves, but just on the face of it, getting a tutor, and the shuffling token is nice because you just banish it, so you don't get to clog your deck. I think there's potential for her. I actually think she's okay. We haven't experimented enough with her. Very interesting card. When I don't know how to rate from lack of experience, but I've seen her a few times. Usually triggering a Simloss again, or triggering a Yorvith again, a trap deck. We'll try her out. I'll leave her in okay for now. Here we come to my favorite card in the entirety of Gwent, the Great Oak. How the Mighty Have Fallen. Went from 9 to 10 one buff. Everyone played it and it got nerfed because people thought that was too strong. Now it's 9 for 12. The only deck that plays it is sometimes Devotion midrange with Shiryu. And not much anymore because the Shiryu has gotten nerfed and more expensive, so they just cut Great Oak. Yeah, that one power buff to 10 just threw everyone off and they nerfed Great Oak again, reverted it. Great Oak's not very good. It's okay. I think Great Oak is in the category of okay. So it has good synergies, and it has a deck it's pretty good in, which is Devotion midrange. Because they spawn a bunch of tokens, and since they're in midrange, this is their only real way to get tall removal. And it's not infinitely tall, right? It's not, like they have Shiryu as well, but it's not infinitely tall. It can go up to like 8. Typically, you can set up your rounds, this can hit like a 5 or 6 power engine in the earlier mid round. You can do that with stuff like Mate's Season. It's all right. It also works well in Symbiosis because you're spawning a bunch of tokens there. But that deck is pretty much figured out at this point, and Oak's not in it. And if you're doing these token spamming things, if you want an engine payoff, Gezros is better and cheaper. Because this is 17 if you have a full row. Oak is 17. It's nice you can do the boost or damage or a mix of both. But if you have a full row, Gezros is going to boost by 8, which is 14, and he'll keep doing it, and he's cheaper. So I think Oak is specifically good in Devotion midrange, where he's an okay choice, but he's not the best. Very sad. We're going to play a deck again. Next up, we have Heist. Heist is a niche card. Like this is one of those niche options. Heist, if the opponent can't remove the things you're trying to spam in Heist, specifically Reardane, Vanadane, and Angus, mostly Angus and then Vanadane, you will probably just win. If they can remove them, then Heist isn't going to do too much, and you're going to be stuck there with the Heist. You have to transform with Eldane or something. It's a niche card. It's for the all-in strategies using it. Those decks either work or they don't, and I don't think they're very good at the moment. It's just so expensive. Yeah, it's going to be a niche card for me. Torque. The reason why it's niche instead of going in like a tier is because there are other decks with the traps and the waylays and such that don't need this, and they're better. So the only reason you're playing this is to play specifically a super combo, which is very fun for highlights and such. But I think if you want to play a deck, like a waylay deck, just do the 4 waylays or 5 waylays with the scenario or something. Don't bother with this. Torque is... Torque is why you play hand buff, right? Kind of... Well, I actually would argue Renfrey is the reason you play hand buff. Not necessarily Torque. Because she works so well with it. That's not... It might not be true. Deck defining for hand buff. I don't think hand buff deserves this. I'll put this down here. It doubles up on the hand buff effects. Makes you a really big card. I will consider Torque to be a good card. I think the power of hand buff is not the strongest deck. And more so it comes from a high density of payoffs. You have this one, and this one. And you really want Torque to hit them. It's really carried by Renfrey, though. Because Renfrey interacts so well with it by not having any units. You boost with Iris and such. Because you want to have no units. Specifically, you want to have no units in this deck because of the Farseer interaction, which we'll get to later. Farseer works best when you have exactly 10 units in hand, which is why the Renfrey is so good, because you want all units. And then it makes all these payoffs better. So I think Torque's probably the best card in the deck. Doesn't mean I put him in the top tier, though. I don't value hand buff very highly. I don't think it's a very good deck. He does kind of make it work, though. I'll leave him here. Next up, we have Taruviel. Okay card. Not a bad inclusion in Elves. If you have a Deadeye, she does 2 damage to the units on the end of the row. That's 9 value, and then 1 to the entire row. Otherwise, you have to pick based on which row you play her in. You're only going to play her with the combo ability. It's not really a combo ability, not in Hearthstone. But yeah, you want to play her with the Deadeye effect. It's not too bad. It's not too good. If you're playing a mirror match and they don't have an Angus, you could kill a bunch of tokens. 2 tokens, I guess. Good against things that spawn much 1-power tokens. Overall, you'd rather play something else. 8 provisions is a bit costly for what she does. I think she's a little expensive. Actually, she's expensive enough. I think we'll drop her down to weak. Yeah, I think that's fair. You'd rather play these other ones. Rather play this. Next up, we have Treant Boar. Good card. Works well with movement. Works well with things that want to have an extra Treant. So Golden Neck or Harmony, for example. Specifically, Harmony playing the movement stuff works pretty well. Overall, just good engine card. I remember the days when it was the best card in the game and it was like a 5 for 8 or something. Ooh, Mantis Strike. Underrated card, but that doesn't make it good. Mantis is weak. I think Mantis needs to be 5. It is 5. You're not fooling me. I must have forgotten to upgrade this picture. There's no way Mantis is still 6. This is definitely 5 now. I knew it. It's 5. Sorry, guys. Wrong image there. I'll make a note to maybe change it for the final tier list, but yeah, this is 5. I still think it's weak. It's not a targeted poison, which makes it awkward. It's kind of like when you play Fallen Rayla decks, and the opponent will just play small units next. Except this time they might play a big unit, because no one plays this. The issue is that decks that play traps don't want poisons, because the poisons are more of a Harmony Dryad type of thing. And they are more elves that don't care, so it doesn't fit very well. I still think it's weak. I will update the image at the end. I don't feel like grabbing it right now, though. Next up, we have Vanadane. Vanadane is a... let's see. Waylay is not what it used to be. Waylay Simloss. Not what it used to be. And Vanadane really messes with your deck. It makes it you self-clog yourself. Especially if you're going to shuffle them back in with Alyssa. He does work really well with the scenario, though, because you play him, and then the scenario Waylay will spawn an extra Deadeye, giving him an extra 3 points of value right away. Plus his ability. And then if you have the Waylays, he gives you extra Deadeyes each time, which is nice. I think he's going to go in the good tier. Good card for those decks. Yeah, it's a good card for those decks. It's really Simloss that makes them work, though. Simloss Angus. Good card. And also Vernociel, the payoff. The big payoff. I think she's excellent. She pays off the Deadeyes a whole bunch. Really good value. You've got 10 Deadeyes out. Not too hard to do round 3. And then she's doing 20 random damage. That will clear out a bunch of stuff. You can play her early with leader charges to kill things if you need to. Your opponent opens like a deadly engine that you really have to kill. You can like triple leader, play her. Or if you have your deception out, spawn the guys. That's why I was debating with deception earlier, moving it up, because spawning the tokens is really valuable for things like Scoia'tael. But I think I'll just rate her up here. This is quite good for her though. But yeah, Scoia'tael, very good payoff. And then if you don't need the damage, you just play her ranged. 13, pretty good. Not what you want to do, but if you can't pay off, she still plays for a decent amount of points. I think she definitely fits up here. Waters of Broccolon. As a known Harmony enjoyer, it's one of my favorite cards. I'm going to leave it in good, though. Golden Necker Harmony is a thing now, because this is at 9. It's fun to try out. If you guys haven't played Golden Necker Harmony and you like regular Harmony, you want a break, I recommend trying it out. It's not as good, but it's pretty fun. Because you go like, get this off of Golden Necker, you get the location and a unit. This comes down. This triggers it with the Witcher. The unit you grabbed will be first, so that won't trigger it. And then you leader, which triggers it again, and you've got like 40 points or something ridiculous. But yeah, good card in Harmony, and you can play Golden Necker Harmony because of it. And even in Devotion midrange, sometimes this is a consideration depending on what units you go for. Not usually, but it can be. Weeping Willow is pretty good. I'll just give it a solid good card here. Gives you that poison with Harmony. If you're playing movement, you can move it. And then obviously you don't need the Harmony, just play it melee. Click that melee order. Sometimes that's worth 8 or 9 points, which is pretty good. Solid card. Xavier is weak. It's not great. 1 point a turn is not worth a gold engine most of the time, especially not when it's conditional. That being said, the condition is not too hard. He does get an armor each time you play a dwarf, maintains his barricade, but dwarves have better engines. And you'd rather have like a Barclay payoff than this. Yavin, good card. Good for elves. Gives you flexible removal. Not too hard to have a bunch of elves out on the board. You play him, he kills something, you're happy. One of the better targets for heist as well if you end up missing on your Angus and Vanadane type of stuff. Yarpen is okay. It's okay in Golden Necker Dwarves because he can pay off the armor. That being said, Golden Necker Dwarves isn't as good as regular Dwarves. I think I'll knock him down here. Am I disrespecting the Yarpen? He plays for what, 3? And he gets the 3 damage. He gets the armor turns to points at the end of the turn on him. So you can transform your armor cards that put armor on things. You put it on him, he turns it to points. It's not too bad, but he's expensive. I think he's weak, yeah. Zoltan is good though. Zoltan's good. Resilience is nice. He boosted 2 adjacent dwarves. He's playing for 9 if you have 2 dwarves, which is pretty good. He has 4 armor, 5 in Mahakam Forge, where you often play him. Makes him hard to deal with. Despite him being only a 5, it's hard to kill him, which means the carryover is usually only denied via Purify. No one really wants to Heatwave him. Also usually gets Purified, but you can come down with extra tempo with the Eudora, and just he's pretty good. Pretty good way to get some carryover. The fact that the armor makes him hard to remove is the best part, I think. Zoltan Warrior, big old tempo play here. Hit 2 enemy units for 3. If they don't die, you spawn tokens. Usually you don't want them to die, so you get the tokens. But if you need to kill a dangerous card, you do hit them. Then each turn, if he's barricaded, which in Mahakam Forge he will be. Otherwise, you have to give him armor some other way, which isn't too hard for dwarves. And then he just pings each turn as well. When he hits 2 cards, he's 3, 6, 9 damage, spawning 2 cards, the 2 rowdy dwarves, playing for 13, with an engine effect himself, some of his values in removal. Overall, really good. And I will put him... he's really on the brink of this for me. He has been nerfed. It's a lot easier to deal with now. Am I really ranking Eudora as the best dwarf? I mean, it's alphabetical, so not really. I think we'll put him up here. I think he's excellent. I think that's shown by him being played in all the Renfree decks in Precision Strike, a lot of them. And finally, Zoltan's Company. Very good card. You play this with the 3 Zoltans, spawn 5 Rowdy Dwarf tokens. That is 10 for 5. They have armor, they have setup for combos. Very good. And that's why you call the Forest into Evangel to make an extra copy of this in the wide Dwarf decks. So I think this makes it up into excellent. Very good setup for Broover. I think we'll leave it with good for now, though. It's a very good card. Like, all these cards are good, but I think these are above them. And that should do it for all of the golds. A quick break here, get some water and such. We'll be back and do the bronzes. All right, on to the bronzes. My girlfriend's cats have decided they want to sit on either side of the screen and stare at the tier list while I make it, so hopefully they don't interfere. Blame it on them if something is messed up. Anyway, on to the... I'll try to remember to put picture in, because you guys always comment that I have to put pictures when I mention cats, so we'll see. Anyway, let's go to Abandoned Girl. She's okay. And by okay, I mean you play her as a human tag for Saskia Commander to pull out, and that's it. So we're going to mention here kind of like the Yon thing. We're going to rate these cards on their own, not that they're good because Saskia Commander exists and this is a human. Because of that, she's pretty weak. Transforming into the Dryad's fine. She gets Vitality for each Dryad. You always get at least one. It'll count itself. And then it has Symbiosis. It's not good, though. Maybe if this was 5, it'd be okay. Probably still wouldn't see anything playing anything else, though. It does kind of get played now, though. Not commonly anymore, though. Usually better things as buffs have gone through for the Saskia Commander. We'll leave her in weak. Antherian. Is Antherian going to be our first excellent bronze? I think so. Antherian, I think, is excellent. It is a Harmony engine with an order to make something else in Harmony engine. That's 2 points a turn. Yes. Well, it's usually 2 points a turn. You'll probably miss out 1 or 2 turns of Harmony when you're playing a Harmony deck, but usually it's pretty consistently 1 a turn. And then giving something else the Harmony is very nice because it overloads the amount of engines you have, which is very good. That being said, if they remove it, they remove the option for you to do that. But that being said, still very dangerous, very good. Backup plan, straight to top tier. Backup plan's incredible. It does 2 damage, and then it spawns an elf with a deploy ability. And then you play the elf. You pick 2 of these off of Simloss, you're doing 4 damage, and the elves have a very high density of damage deploys, which means you'll probably get 2 or 3 more damage to kill something in 7 range, like about the 7 range. You can kill something at 10 sometimes. But it's pretty consistent. If the opponent plays a 6 or 7 power dangerous engine, you can kill it with Simloss double backup plan. Very good. Also, we'll note this playing the elf is almost always better than playing an elf in your deck if you just need 1 elf. So for example, if you're playing like a Harmony with Feign Death, or you're playing like a Feign Death without that many elves, it's better to play this than most of the elves in the game. So that is makes this super good. Oh. What are you? I want to say you're Blue Mountain Saboteur or something like that. Let me check. Blue Mountain Elite. Pretty close. Pretty close. Considering how often this card's played, I'm giving myself credit for that. Only ever seen off of Backup Plan and Bountiful Harvest. Again, we're just going to count these cards in a vacuum. And it is bad. It's 3 damage to a unit that's only on its row. If you're doing something like that that's very specific, the payoff has to be there. It is not. This has to be like a 5 power or something to see any reasonable consideration. It's like a double buff or something. Harvest. Same deal with Backup Plan. Incredible. By far better than actually playing an elf if your deck needs an elf. And yeah, just if you want to say you're playing Harmony and you want a couple elves in your deck, just play these over actual elves. because the hand buff's more valuable and the removal is more valuable. Plus, I come off of sim loss. Plus, like the hand buff in Harvest particularly is very good because you can stack more boosts on your finisher. You can stack boosts on your engines. And you can control where it goes somewhat too, depending on which unit you pick. And very good card to be considered if you want to make a sim loss all-in deck. You can shuffle copies back into your deck. Try and make like a Rune Mage with sorcerers. Make more of these that make more sorcerers type of deal. Incredible. Okay, so this one we can't rate in a vacuum. Brocklon Sentinel. This card, I will actually amend what I was about to say. I was about to say no one has ever played this card by themselves without playing Precision Strike Leader. That's not true. I saw someone do it last month. Okay, that being said, this is only really played Precision Strike Leader because a Precision Strike Leader creates one, which will then obviously pull 2 out of your deck instead of 1. This is one of the only 4 precision thinning cards that is not good on its own. So this kind of has to be ranked with the Precision Strike Leader. So we're going to rank this as considering the Precision Strike Leader. You're never going to play this on its own. You're going to play this with Precision Strike, a very aggressive leader sometimes that can pull 2 of these out of their deck. I do think that's very good, specifically with Precision Strike, which is how it's used. I mean, you don't play Precision Strike without this. You just don't. There's no way. Such an awkward card to rate. That's what niche is for. That's what niche is for. This is basically the rating of the Precision Strike Leader, is how good this card is. And that depends. So I'm going to put it in niche. Incredible Precision Strike. But it's not like you play Precision Strike without it. They're kind of intertwined. A lot of decks do like it. It is very good in those decks. So, I don't know. We'll put it here. Cat Witcher Adept. It's a pretty solid card, actually. Surprisingly good. So, 4 for 4. When you play it ranged, you get Vitality equal number of units on its row. Melee, give an enemy bleeding equal number of units on its row. The Vitality is almost always better because you will have ways to scale the Vitality, and you'll have better ways to control how much Vitality you get. Very good one of in decks like Symbiosis, where you might have a 4-person unit slot left over, and then you can absorb the Vitality Fledgling. Very good in Devotion midrange, where you have things like the Mating Season to take the advantage of those Vitality faster. And often you're just getting like 6 or 7 Vitality, just really good value, relatively quickly too. If you can, in those decks, you can spawn tokens and such. Pretty good card. Surprisingly good, I would say. It's also really good in well, I can't talk for a second there. In Saskia Commander decks, because a lot of the problems with Saskia Commander decks are you have these cards you want her to pull out to thin, but then if you end up drawing them, they're not good. You could actually get a good amount of value off of this if you end up drawing it. Mentor, okay, so Mentor is specifically good in the Engine Overload Golden Necker movement, or an Engine Overload movement without Golden Necker, where you're like spamming Megascopes on this and Cat Witchers and Sentinels and stuff and moving things back and forth between this card's row. This card will end up being worth like 10 or 15 points most of the time, which is a lot. The fact that it has to deploy to come down with a decent amount of points as well is pretty nice. That being said, I think it's the last card you put in those decks. I think the other engines are better, but it's not bad. You really have to go into the overloading on engines to run this, though. I'll give it an okay. I guess people arguing this is higher if they like that deck. Saboteur. I'm also going to put this in okay. Usually played in bomb decks, it's like a 1-of or something. As we said previously, oops, this is not the here. Let's put them down here. Must not have cropped my images all the same size. Sorry about that. That's how you know I cropped them myself, so they're not even. Sorry. Anyway, we snipped all these images from the Gwent website ourselves. But anyway, onto the Coucher Saboteur here. You move a unit past stuff and bomb. Well, you throw a bomb at it. It's not actually a bomb card, obviously. You move a unit and then do 1 damage plus number of cards and move past. The issue I have with this is often the decks that I want to use this are Milva sharpshooter decks, where you're already killing almost all their units, and then you can't move this past that many cards. That's my issue with it. That being said, it's not bad, but I think that's more of why it's commonly, if run is a 1 of. I think it's all right, specifically in those bomb decks. But otherwise, I think the other stuff's better. Like I think Frenzy Dow with Rock Slides is better, for example. The Rock Slide also moves, but does more damage. This can be kind of inconsistent with the Milva. So I'm going to leave it in okay. Cat Witcher itself, though, is a pretty solid card. 1 damage a turn randomly. Adrenaline 2. Adrenaline is only 3, which means it's not getting the value for very long. But the movement apart is what usually gets you the value, because it's moving itself each turn. Usually you're playing this in a deck with movement synergies. There's Double-Fauna Sentry. I think a Sentry. Boosts it by 1 each time it moves. Milva gets 1 up point each time it moves. So you're kind of stacking the value there. It's not all about the 1 damage each time it moves. But if you're playing like a Harmony deck, this might be the Witcher you want to include with your Saskia Commander to pull it out as an engine. It's pretty good. Chameleon's really good because of what it does. I mean, that's the dumbest statement I think I've said this video. But it's good because of what it does to your other cards. It enables all of your other Harmonies each time you click its order to redeploy it. And that really makes the opponent have to kill it. As if this plays itself, it's getting 3 extra points each time. Sure, it reduces itself, but it's also getting an extra point on your Dusk aspect each time. So usually the opponent really needs to deal with this. And if you have Dana out or you have the scenario out, it can be a little harder to get rid of sometimes. So very good. Above very good, I'd say. This is one of those must-answer cards. Next up, we have hard one to rate. Circle of Life. 3 damage, 2 random hand buff, death blow, hand buff is targeted. It's not as bad as it seems, because you can use it in hand buff. That being said, hand buff likes to play Renfried with all units, so you don't see it there. More of a Golden Necker hand buff card. Sometimes you play as a nature, specifically in Devotion mid-range, to add a way to boost your Shiru, because they also have some Symbiosis payoff as well there, and some special payoff where they might want more damage. I'm going to give it okay because of that. It's not too bad in that deck. I think the other choices are better, but it can work as a 1-of, sometimes a 1-of in the Devotion mid-range decks. It's not as bad as it seems at first glance, because usually the 2 hand buff can be made effectively. Now, the 3 damage card, you can usually line up a Death Blow. Not like Sarissa, where 2 is kind of hard to set up. Cleaver's Muscle. Okay. Let's just talk about Cleaver's Muscle. Obviously, the only time you ever see this is off of Novigradian Justice, except that one patch it was buffed to 7 for some reason, where I actually ran it in my decks as a Saskia Commander card. That being said, that is no longer the case, and this is only seen off of Novigradian Justice. As of that, its best ranking here is in the niche tier, because it's spawned by Justice. If you want to play this card on its own, though, it is bad. It will never be buffed again, unless someone's trolling. So I don't want to put it in meme, because of Justice. So we'll put it in niche. No memes yet, which is good to see. Crushing Trap. One of the better traps. 2 damage on a row after 2 turns. Pretty nice. Often the opponent will play around this if they have a pretty wide row, but sometimes you'll hit like 4 or 5 units each. We'll usually hit 4 or 5 units. It is one of the better traps. Typically, again, only played for Angus. We're going to rate it on its own. And I think it's an okay trap. I'll give it okay. Yeah, it's okay. Angus gets all the value from these traps, by the way. Like, I'm not saying the decks with traps are bad. I'm just saying Angus is the excellent card here, not the traps. It is a cost to include the traps. Gwent Canal Guardian is quite good. 5 for 5, 2 damage order with Symbiosis. That's all quite a nice package there. 7 for 5 with a Symbiosis engine if you click the order. The order can help you set up your damage. In Devotion in particular, you often have trouble reaching above 5 damage on your cards, like Rebuke, for example, being the highest. And this helps you get there. Very nice opening card. I think it's very good, specifically in Devotion. Next up, we have the Archer. Okay, this one is one of the better elves. Most of the elf bronzes are trash, probably because they get made off of these 2 cards, which means they cannot be buffed, more or less, until these cards are nerfed. So that's really holding them back. What do we think about this one? This is one of the better ones. Sometimes gets played. If you hit an enemy unit and kill it with the 3 damage, it is 8 for 5. If you get 2 1s and spawn 2, you're getting 10 for 5. That's very uncommon. The only time I see this is as a 1-of in Renfrey decks. Because like Renfrey Dragon, they want more damage on their units. I will give it a weak, though. I think probably as a base power. I think it's at 4 to be really good. Means a power. I think it's weak. Almost okay, but weak. Global of Bombers has 2 damage, 2 random cards. 2 random units, I should say. Bad. Random damage. As we've said in all these videos, I think, damage is good. Cards with damage are good if the damage lets you remove a threat, or if the damage is enough that it gets a reasonable amount of value on its own. 6 for 4 is not a reasonable amount of value on its own, and 2 random damage to 2 cards is not enough to targetedly destroy something. Yeah, sometimes they play a Necker and you play this and it's hilarious, but that won't happen because this won't be in your deck. This is bad. It needs a buff. Dolbothon Archer, though, this one's actually pretty decent. I don't think I'd give it good. I'd give it an okay. So if you play this, it does damage, more damage the farther away the enemy is. One of the few remaining cards that really has some remnant of the reach keyword that used to exist. Not exactly, but you know what I mean? Like, it actually depends on how far away the cards are, what row they're in. Very cool effect. Very cool effect. And if you're playing this range, the opponent plays their card range, you get 3 damage. 7 for 4 with 3 damage. That's pretty reasonable. That being said, that is why against Scoia'tael, you often play all your stuff melee. Just to deny that 1 extra point, because it sometimes is the difference between living and dying on your engines. And this card's existence, despite the fact the payoff isn't that big, 1 damage isn't that big a payoff, despite that, often the reason the opponent will roast stack against you, because of and then you can hit him with like this. I do think that this will go in okay, not good, but it's not a bad card. Sentry. I gotta sell this right now. Is it Sentry or Sentinel? I will not remember after, but I'm pretty sure it's Sentry. It is Sentry. I'm extra zoomed in because the reason the text is a little funny there, guys, is random aside here. My recording software doesn't let me do past 1920 1080 HD 60 FPS without buying it, and I don't really want to pay $300 a year for this software. So that's why I have to shrink my computer's native resolution is not HD. It's above that. It's like 2560 by 1600. It's a weird resolution, but that's why when I change the settings to record, sometimes the text is a little weird like that. A little fun fact for you guys. Anyway, on to the next card here. Sentry. Very strong. The defining card for movement decks, I would say. I think I'll put it up here. Those decks aren't the best, but this card does a lot for them, and it also opens up decks want to play Saskia Commander movement package. And by that, I mean you play Saskia Commander, this is your Elf, this is your Witcher, and then the card we'll get to soon is your Dryad. And you pull those out, don't play that many other categories, Charlotte's getting out this really strong cycle of pulling out engines with Saskia to win a round 1. I think this card's very, very strong. I wouldn't say the pure movement deck is super strong. This card is probably the best card in it. It just adds up so many points. Unless you double up on engines, basically. Next up, we have you. Dryad Enchantress, I want to say. No, this one's Enchantress. Well, let's take a look. I'll just do it the Dryad way. Anyway, this is either the 4 armor or the 3. It's Symbiosis with either the armor or the Vitality. Surprisingly not that good, or surprisingly not that bad. The problem is just that the 4 version slot is outcompeted in the decks that want to play it by the nature specials. Yeah, it's 4 for 4. It is. Oh, this is Enchantress. I'm right. Enchantress, and this one's going to be Grovekeeper. Nice. We actually remembered the names correctly. Enchantress is going to go in the OK tier. It's 3 with Symbiosis, which is fine. The deploy is 4 Vitality, which is technically a 7 for 4. It isn't too bad. It's not too bad. But I think this is a reasonable candidate for a buff, maybe. But yeah, overall, I'm going to say it's an okay card. Sometimes a 1-of, if you have a 1 version slot. Say you're playing a Symbiosis deck that wants to run like Harvest, and you don't Harvest and the more expensive natures, and you have a 4 version unit slot left over. Not a bad inclusion. I think it's alright. I don't think you'd run 2 of it ever, but it's not a bad card. Dryad Fledgling is okay as well. Is it, though? No one plays this. And it's okay. It's not a great card. The only upside to playing this, it's only played in Saskia Commander, because you don't want to play this out of your hand when Water makes 2. And the other Dryads with Harmony, like Ranger, are much better. So the issue with this is fixed if it comes off of Saskia Commander, because then it's pretty good. He pulls off Saskia Commander, that's good. Also lessens the chance you waste one of your Poison Rangers from the Saskia Commander, which is the big upside there. That being said, I don't think it's really worth running, but it's okay. I will not put it in weak, because when this was buffed to 6 at some point, it was super, super strong, mostly because Water made 2. But again, we're ranking this in a vacuum. And at 6, with Harmony, it would be hard to deal with. So I think we'll leave it okay. Grovekeeper is bad. And I think this might be our first meme tier card. How do I feel about that? Yeah. Yeah, this is a meme card. For those of you who don't know what Grovekeeper does, we're in for a lovely card here. Vitality 2, Bonded Vitality 4. That is very bad. Yes, we've mentioned a couple times how Vitality has some synergy in the faction. Bonded for 4 Vitality, though, on average, this isn't even worth it. So the thing with bonded cards is usually if you combine the 2 effects together and average them out, it's above average, because you have to get them together. This is not above average, it's below average. If you played a card like Vitality 3, you would not play it. Now, if we take a look here for a second. Huh. Synchron Enchantress, deploy. Vitality 2, Bonded Vitality 4. I think we know where you put that card for Northern Realms. It's the same card, except this one has more base power. Or no, it doesn't. It has the same base power, except this one has actual mage synergies. Grovekeeper doesn't really have synergies. Like, it has some vitality. It's about as synergistic and about as bad. This is a meme card. Matron, though, is pretty good. Matron is pretty good. Each turn you get 1 point because you're going to play your cards next to it. It moves and gives them 1 point. It's giving you a point each turn that way. And it's also boosting, which is nice to protect stuff. And it's also moving, which gives you double synergies with stuff like Sentry and Milva. Pretty good card. Ranger, also a good card. Harmony with 2 damage or Harmony with Poison. Harmony with Poison is always the one you want, unless you need the 2 damage to kill something, because it'll be more value. Or, obviously, if you don't have 2 poisons in hand, you'd play the damage. A very nice card. Card we did a video on long ago when we used to do the individual card review series where we suggested changing the effect to melee and ranged. Because it used to be 2 damage and poison with 3 base power. And splitting them up was very smart. What we suggested in that video as well. Caress is a good card. Purify with 3 boost. But the main thing here is if you have a Dryad, you get 3 Vitality. That's where it becomes good. Usually just played in Devotion. Devotion Symbiosis. Pretty good there, though. Nice way to prevent your cards from being locked and poisoned. Good card. Makes the opponent consider whether or not they won't even try locking you. Berserker is also good. 1 point a turn random damage off of him makes him a 7 for 4. In Mahakam Forge, it's 8 for 4 because he has the armor. That's pretty nice. It's not like most engines that can be killed because they're killing it by putting damage into it. You're getting the value from the armor anyway. So it's usually just going to be a 7 for 4, which is good. He has also synergies with more giving armor effects and just pretty solid value. Usually this is a dwarf you play in a Saskia Commander deck to get pulled out. And in dwarf decks, it's actually a pretty solid card. Agitator. Our Agitator has a very unique thing here. So Agitator gives you armor, and that armor is pretty useful if you're not playing Mahakam Forge, right? So deploy, give armor to dwarves in your hand. This is how you enable your Zoltan Warrior, not in your Mahakam Forge decks. And there it has a pretty good use. I'm going to give it okay. I don't think it's good still. Well, that was an awkward way to say it. I don't think it goes in the good tier still. I think it's an alright card. And it works pretty decently well, specifically with the deck we talked about there, the Precision Strike Dwarves. But I still think you'd rather have a Chariot give armor, so it's not always the best choice. I'd rather have Chariots going, so we'll give it an okay. Speaking of Chariot, though, this is a good card. You either get a 6 with 3 armor. That's very hard to get rid of. Engine that gives 1 armor each turn. Armor is not the best engine value. You have to do something else to take advantage of the armor, like the Berserker we put it next to. But it can also protect your other engines. Or you play it ranged, typically when you have your stratagem and you boost it with a stratagem. And you get the 2 dwarf tokens, and you have this little engine in the back that gives out armor. Also, very good range to set up a workshop combo. Good range to set up a couple tokens if you're going for a Brewer round or Monroe. Overall, very solid engine card. The engine value itself isn't that great most of the time, but with dwarves, you can make the engine armor giving into something pretty useful. So it's pretty good. And often just the spawning of the 2 tokens is nice. Mercenary is bad. Now, this is like a terrible version of Fiend, if we think about it. So let's just look at a comparison here. So Mercenary is a 7 for 4 that takes 1 damage for each non-dwarf unit in your hand. In a pure dwarf deck, it is a 7 for 4, which is mediocre. It's okay. The problem here is that dwarves have some very good 4 precision units that this will never outcompete, so it can't be used there. And no unit or something else, it doesn't have enough points to be worth it. It's just too small. And if we look at Fiend, Fiend's downside can be resolved by playing it early in the round. Mercenaries is resolved by playing it late in the round. You don't want to play your bronze 4 precision cards late in the round. You want to play them early when you can either decide you're getting rid of them or you're going to save them and shuffle them back into your deck later. Mercenary is just not good. It's just too small. It has to be bigger. At least 8 base power. And even then, often even in dwarf decks, you have non-dwarf units like Ciaran. So it's rough. It's rough. Speaking of good 4 precision dwarves, Skirmisher's going in top tier. 3 damage on deploy, gives himself an armor, 3 damage next turn. 6 damage on a 4 precision bronze is pretty much unheard of. It is across 2 turns, but that can be a benefit because you hit something with the first 3 damage, and next turn you have 3 damage on this, maybe a second one in hand, maybe another damage card in hand. The opponent kind of sometimes has to kill this. But yeah, if they don't kill it, if you're just hitting stuff, 7 for 4 is acceptable value. And if you are killing stuff, which with 6 damage over 2 turns, you probably can. Very dangerous card. I think this is a super strong card. Neophyte. Oh wait, this is not Neophyte. I did the thing again. This is the thing again. Yeah, we did the thing again. 1 second, guys. On to Elven Scout then. I had to quickly remove the fake neophyte. For those of you who want to know or are curious, originally I got all the card images by exporting or extracting them from the game files. And there's some unused cards or cards that got their names changed eventually that have duplicate images, which is why sometimes we have like the wrong image, like a neophyte with a 3. It wasn't neophyte, it was a card in the game files with a different name. But then every card that's been changed in a balance console, we went and snipped out of the library images and put them in here. So that's why sometimes we miss things like this. But we're on to Elven Scout then, which is an alright card. Traps don't love this, kind of for the same reason as Mr. Hattori down here. And they don't have that many units. They'd rather have more traps. But going all in on traps, like Trapper is the best payoff. If you're playing this first, the opponent will often just kill it because it's at 4. And yeah, if you trigger a couple traps, they'll go up fairly big. But they're going to have removal because you're not really playing anything else they want to remove. They'll just hit this with their bronze removal and it'll die. That being said, it can get a decent amount of points, but usually you're better off playing either more cards that just get points right away, like Half-Elf Hunter, for example, that gives you more space to play traps with by having more units out or stuff like that. The opponent's not going to want to get rid of, or just more damage cards, so you need to know unit. It's all right. It's not that the card itself is bad; it's that the deck it's in doesn't really want to play its play style. This Elven Sage, used to be a fairly played card. 10 for 4 is a stat line you love to see. You don't love to see having to play 3 specials first. I think it's okay though. I wouldn't go as far as put this in weak. I think there's decks where this can work. The thing is, it's not necessarily engine overloading, because it's not. It is. I would consider it an engine, actually. Yeah, I would consider it an engine. But the decks that play it don't typically overload that much on engines. It's more of a Alzur type deck card. An Alzur type deck might play this. It's all right. Elven Seer, though. Now this is a good card. Do I want to consider this top tier? I'm very tempted. I will hold off because I haven't seen it much lately. But Elven Seer is a very good card. We target the special, and duplicates the special and plays it again. The best candidates for this, Armorer's Workshop and Equinox are the best targets. Most common targets will be Tempering, because you play this, then click your Mahakam Forge or your Mahakam Pass or Mahakam Forge Leader. You click those, play the Tempering on this, get a second one. Very good value, very consistent value. 9 for 5, pretty nice. Synergies with extra specials. But best one is Equinox and Workshop. Very good combos there. But really works well. If you hit it with any special, you're going to be pretty happy. Golden Froth even, play it there. Overall, just a very good card. Something the opponent really wants to deal with. And one of the main reasons it's so good is because of synergies, right? Playing extra natures triggers symbiosis. Playing extra specials will make your gourd more consistently 12. Things like that. I think it's a good card. Swordmaster is all right. If you're playing a Assassin Commander deck, the elf slot is, if you're just trying to put in one 4-version elf, it's either going to be this or the Purify one, depending. And then if you're playing a movement package, you'd play Sentry and play her ranged. But if you're playing this, you'd play the Assassin Commander melee. Kind of determines that. But other than that, I think it's just an alright card. Not the best in elf decks. You can run it kind of as a 1 damage per turn engine. It's not great though. And like I said, we're going to rate these on their own in a vacuum. 1 per turn is not too bad. But I really think this does need a little bit of a buff. I'll put it down here. War Dancer is pretty weak as well. So War Dancer does 1 damage and 3 if she's already boosted. Kind of a payoff to hand buff. But like we said, 7 for 4 is acceptable. That's like not bad. That's like a decent 4-version card. Pretty solid. Those three things probably meant three different things to everyone, but that's fine. I think she's okay, but the condition is what makes her fall down. You have to hand buff, so you have to play hand buff. And a hand buff, there are way better payoffs than this. This is just not even worth it, really. You'd rather play something else that buffs your hand. Farseer, though. As much as I say I don't think hand buff's a very good deck, Farseer is incredible. I'll put Farseer up here. Let's just talk about Farseer's value for a second. So you boost an unboosted unit in your hand by the number of boosted units in your hand. You play Invigorate. This is why you always want to play 25 unit Invigorate, or like Renfree hand buff's the best. Because you boost the 4 units with your Invigorate, and then you play Farseer. You don't boost Farseer. You boost everything except Torque. Right, because we look at Torque. Those of you who've seen this deck probably know this, but we'll just spell it out anyway. So Torque, whenever it's boosted in your hand, boost a random different card by same amount. You boost 8 units that aren't Torque or Farseer. You play the Farseer, target the Torque, 8 boost on Torque. Torque then shoots the 8 boost onto another random card in your hand. That Farseer play is going to use 16 points of carryover. Yes, we contribute 8 to Torque. 8 points of carryover is still incredible. That's 13 for 6 in 8 of its carryover. That's why this card's so strong. This is what really carries hand buff, is you get value like this. And Farseer is really card doing it. So I'll give her the excellent for that. Next up we have, Poison Lady. Poison Dryad. Oh, it's just Farseer, not Elven Farseer. Okay. Anyway, this is Forest Dryad, I believe. Or Forest Whisperer. It's Forest Whisperer. The Forest Dryad. Poison melee, or 4 damage vitality ranged. Usually used for a second poison. Good card. Good card for the extra poison in Harmony. Typically, Ranger in this gives you plus Weeping Willow's 5 poisons, which is where your Tall Punish comes from. And then you also have the option to play this ranged and get that 4 vitality, which is pretty nice. Actually, I think it's 3 vitality, now that I said it. Yeah, it's 3. That's correct. So the value really comes from the melee ability. The range is just a backup. Giant Slayer's weak. Sadly, very cool card. Often the best thing you can get off of Mahakam Pass, but usually not that good on its own. Because you play it, you choose an enemy unit. If the enemy unit is higher base power than you get 3 armor. And then if you're in Mahakam Forge, which probably would be if you have the provisions to afford this card, you would be at 4 armor with doing 1 ping each turn. And if you kill it with this card's effect, it can't die to anything else. It has to be this card's effect. Then you would get a resilience on it. It is too expensive. Big surprise there. It's too expensive for what it does. Often the opponent will be able to play around you killing the unit. Often because you're in Dwarves, a random Berserker will kill the thing you want this to kill. And 1 point per turn is not the best engine, and it ends when you kill the unit. Sure, you get resilience, but the engine effect ends. So, not the best. It's a little too expensive. Half-Elf Hunter has been buffed and should be on here correctly. Ah, it is. Give me a second. Had to remove the wrong Half-Elf Hunter there. We'll go to Half-Elf Hunter later. It's further up on that tier list. Actually, it should be here. Oh, we're almost there. So go with Hamadryad here. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's usually between playing Hamadryad or playing Gwent Canal Guardian, depending on what deck you want to go with, more damage or more engine. But it's a good card. It has Symbiosis, so even if it's not going while it's going tall, it'll get points from Symbiosis. Then with the Tall Punish, it still got some value. It does go pretty tall. It is technically only 1 extra point per turn on this thing. if you're not symbiosising. But considering the symbiosis is 2 a turn if you're playing specials, well, nature specials, which is usually worth it. And if they tall punish this, they're not tall punishing Gourd often. So I think it's a good card. Guys, do we really talk about these? Guys. This card's atrocious. Heal 4 or boost 2? No. Heal 4? Most cards in this faction have 4 or less base power. So heal 4 is really uncommon. Most of them boost themselves or boost in their factions, which means that you're never getting 4 heal. I'm probably counting 2. And 2 boost? No, this thing has to be like 5 base power to be considered. And that's never going to happen. This is a meme card. Smuggler, though. Hey, is this buffed too? Did I really miss this card? No, I didn't. Okay, perfect. I was talking about it earlier in hand buff. I thought I said this was 5. It's 5 power. That's correct. It's pretty good. Specifically in the hand buff deck. We mentioned Dunka. This is cheaper than Dunka. So I think it's better just because it's cheaper. Yeah, it can be locked, but you're going to play so many of these things that buff your hand. Anyway, they can't lock everything. And the 3 damage just make Dunka a little better, but you get 2 of these because it's bronze and it's, cheaper. I think it's pretty good for hand buff. Hand buff likes it. But this card is really the hand buff payoff. You boost a already boosted unit in your hand by 3. 3 points of carryover is pretty nice. Put it on Torque, and you're looking at 6 points. How you want to attribute that between Torque and this card is up to you. I would give this thing 3. 3 points of carryover on a bronze is pretty good. So I think this is pretty good. Half of Hunter. Pretty good now, actually. It's been buffed relatively recently. I don't often mention if they're buffed if it was a while ago. This was recent. So 6 for 4. Not great, but it spawns 2. It's 2 guys. One of them's a token. The token has synergies. It has synergies with certain other things, like the elf scenario. If you want to play like an elf deck, you can use this. Pretty good. They really like having the extra tokens. Has Harmony with Harmony, which is nice because extra points and engine value there. So overall, just a solid card. Does quite a bit and quite a bit well. Never the card you think's oppressive, but a card that does its purpose pretty well. This is the Trapper, as I call it. I don't even know what its real name is. I just call it Trapper. Better be Trapper. It's not Trapper. It's Hostage Taker. Okay. I always call this card Trapper. Anyway, Hostage Taker, as we can see here for a second, very cool effect. So use an opponent's unit with 0 less power, and the number goes up for each trap you've played this round. So I think this is the best payoff to traps, not necessarily an Eldain, although you can obviously play both in the same deck, and they usually are in the same deck. But I think this is more useful than going all in on traps with Eldain, because you only need 4 or 5 traps for this to be good. Whereas Eldain, you really want a whole bunch, usually with like transforming the heist as well. I think it's good. Maybe we're being harsh on Eldain. Maybe he's good too. But I think this is good. This is a payoff to that deck. I don't see that deck that commonly, but it always has this in it, and it doesn't always have Eldain. Then again, maybe they just don't draw Eldain, and they got unlucky, and that's why they forfeited. But overall, good effect, good payoff. If you're taking an opponent's that's a 3, it's a 10-point swing. Even just 3 is very good effect. 10 for 5 is good. Anything above that, you're looking at really high returns. Especially because you can take things that are, like you just take like Francesca or something. Very good. Considering traps okay as well. All the traps are overcosted. Like all the traps are overcosted because of being non-interactive, how they are. But I think this one's all right. Definitely one of the better ones. And it can often catch a unit that you want to. It often catches something early. Because what will usually happen is you play this. If the opponent has an engine, they'll hold off a turn to play the engine to have something else eat the trap. And then you basically gain an extra point there by not having their engine go out earlier. So it's not too bad, actually. Yeah, this one's not too bad. Still only like a 1-of, though. This guy's okay, too. Is it okay? It's Barricade 1 a turn. 4 for 4. The other 4 version dwarves are just better. They're just better. I'll put this in weak. It has to go in the Mahakam Forge dwarf deck, and then other dwarf bronzes are much better. Like this one. Boost by 1 for each other dwarf on its row. Pretty common if it's down for like 9-10 points. That's pretty good as a payoff to round 1. Often you pull this off of your Mahakam, Novgorod and Justice, grab this, then you get the 6-point guy in the melee row, play this at the end of the melee row when you have 8 other units. Got a 17-point play there, pretty nice. Overall, just a good solid end of round 1 type of bronze to play in dwarves. Marauder. Marauder is an interesting one. You have to build your deck around it. But even then, I think it's good. Marauder is good effect. Usually you play this with decks that are playing Workshop. But Miner is pretty good now. And you just Miner a random dwarf. This guy's going to play for at least 9, which is pretty good. Works great in decks with Living Armor too. Volunteers. Top tier. Volunteers thin out the deck if you have a dwarf on board. There are a lot of good bronze dwarves that are 4 provisions. It's not costly to put this in your deck. And it thins your deck, which is great. Which is why stuff like Renfrew plays this, even if they're not all in on dwarves. And I've seen plenty of decks that just play like 2 dwarves, like maybe like a Zoltan Warrior and Eudora, and then Skirmishers, and then they have this. Making a bomb is okay. It works best in the Milva Dragon Bomb decks because it moves while still being a bomb, so it triggers Milva too. That being said, if the opponent develops a board, this one gets a lot worse because it turns into bleeding instead of damage, which is why I'm only going to rate it as okay. Miner's good now. 5 for 4, but the order is 2 boosts and 4 armor. That 4 armor is what really counts. 7 for 4 is acceptable. Like we said, it's pretty solid for a 4. But that 4 armor is where you get the really big upsides. Put that on a Berserker, this guy's order is worth 6 points. You put that on something in a Marauder, again, it's worth 6 points. Very good. And just the fact that you can put this armor on something and just make it unkillable outside of Tall Punish or hard removal is really good. If it's a dwarf. And even if it's not a dwarf, just the 2 is not too bad if you like pull this out in your Tusk Commander deck or something. They add Fledgling here. I will put this up here. I think this is an excellent card. Obviously, we're just going to consider these, I would say in a vacuum, but you will never play this without Aquin. So Aquin will make this a nature card, which means when you play it, you get the Symbiosis right away. Which will mean it'll trigger its effect right away. Which means on deploy, this is a 6 that gives the adjacent card 2 Vitality and spawns a 1 power token. And if you're in Nature's Gift, which you will be, it'll be a 2 power token. It's effective an 8-point deploy that gives 2 each time you play a nature special. That's extremely good. And this order to remove Vitality and turn it into points makes it synergize incredibly well with Shaping Nature and its own effect. If you just play like Simloss into 2 specials, all of a sudden this has like 6 Vitality in the card next to it, 8 Vitality next to it. Just eats it. Super strong card. Pawnkeeper is good as well. I wouldn't say it's quite as good as Fledgling, but it's good. Gives you a flexible removal option depending on how big your Treant tokens are, which is very nice. And then sometimes you infuse with Symbiosis if you don't need that. But it can be a bit awkward to set up the tokens. And often the token will be, say you have like an 8 power token, you want to kill a 4 power unit, you lose some points there. So usually it's not the most consistent way to remove, but it's a way to remove, which is useful, and it can go above the value of your rebukes and such. Oh, Rebuke is next. Not planned. Rebuke's just a good, solid 5 damage removal card. The Death Blow for the boost a Treant by 2 is often relevant because you'll have a Symbiosis spawning a token. Usually if your opponent goes first, you won't get that though, because they'll play a card, you want to kill it with a rebuke, and you don't get the death blow. But death blow extra points is nice. Usually it matters eventually. Unlike the second one or something, it matters, or if you go first. Oak Critters are good. One of the better devotion cards. 10 for 4, because you spawn a second 3-power card, and then you have 4 bleeding. That's 10 for 4 over 4 turns. And the fact that it spawns an extra token works quite well with what you want to do in Devotion Scoia'tael anyway, so that's nice. And it's just pretty good value. It's not quite good enough you want to force Devotion decks, but it is an option that if you're thinking you're almost in Devotion, and you could run this if you're there, maybe like taking out 1 extra card out might be worth it, because this is a very good 4. Orb of Insight is niche, I think. Yeah, it's only for Alzur decks. How do I rate Alzur decks? How do we rate Alzur decks? This is a 2 with 2 Vitality that comes back and does it again. So it's a total of 8, with 4 of it being carryover. If you play enough spells. Or specials, rather. I think niche is the spot for this. It has to be comboed with an Alzur combo deck, but it's very good there. I just don't really know how to rate that deck. I haven't played it very much. And this card really is what makes it work. Panther is bad. 2 damage or 4 bleeding. Like we said, 4 bleeding, 7 for 4 is acceptable. Like, it's a pretty good baseline. But bleeding is not gonna get you there. This card needs a power buff. It's just not good enough. Pyrotechnician is pretty good. Depending on your deck, you probably prefer other 4s, which is why I'm going to knock it down to okay. But it's a consideration. Legitimate consideration. Especially in Mahakam Forge. If you want to play more control-y with your dwarves, opening with this can really mess with the opponent. As you have Skirmisher in hand in this, not much is surviving if you choose to get rid of it. But I would probably not recommend it as like the best choice for your dwarves. Neophyte. It's a pretty good card in Deadeyes. The fact it gives you more Deadeyes is nice. It's not amazing, though. The thing is, you really want this to get both orders off, right? You play your, say, Avlok Sage, get your scenario, get your sticky situation, play this. This transforms the Sage, then the other one transforms this. Then you've gotten, if you've Angus out, which you will have Angus out, each time you transforms 2 extra points, plus 3 on the Sage. Then it's played for a good amount. You got a 4, plus 2, and a 2. That's 8. That's good. But often the opponent will kill one of these. But it's still pretty solid, I'd say. It's a lot better than it looks on paper when you play with it, in my experience. Brigade is alright. 2 damage on deploy, then 2 each time you move it. Can be usually a one of in like a movement deck, as in Brown's option to move with like a wherever she went, the move each turn person. Or just use extra guerrilla tactics, leader charges on if there's nothing else you want to use it on. But usually you probably only play 1. It's an okay card. Sorceress is pretty good. Has some specific decks where she works well. Likes guerrilla tactics quite a bit because you can put one on her and make her hard to remove. Likes invigorate to give those extra boosts as well. Same reason. And overall, pretty solid card. One the opponent will usually try very hard to kill. But that's because her effect is really strong. The fact that she gets damage below 4, though, and you can't create the specials, sometimes is an issue, so we'll leave her in good, I think. Next up, we have Tempering. Tempering. I mean, it cannot be buffed, so it's either at least okay, or it's meme. I think Tempering's pretty bad. I'm going to stick it down here. The thing with tempering is all the other specials are better. They're just all better. And if you really want a tempering, you can just get off the Mahakam Forge leader or the Mahakam Pass. I don't think there's ever a reason to consider this, because if you want a 4 Persian nature, Caress is much better, and even Circle of Life is better. So you just wouldn't play this. Trained Hawk is bad also, but could be safe. This card just needs a provision buff. And then you have a, well, even with the provision buff, it's still not good enough, right? 2 damage or movement versus Dragoon, which is movement with 2 boost or 1 damage. No, this is bad. This like is double buff. Train Hawk used to be okay, but now it's not. It's bad. Oh, hold on. This is Trap Maker, right? Trap Maker? I hate this card. Not for being good. Yeah, Trap Maker. Boost self by 3 for each face down allied trap. I can remember myself complaining about this card last year when I made this tier list. I will try to be shorter this time. Face down traps. If you see 2, this is an 8 for 4. You don't want your traps to be face down though, you want them going off. If they're face down, it's usually because something's going wrong, and it's pretty hard to have 2 face down traps, because this one can be, but most of them will trigger immediately. Like maybe this one will stay face down, Deception, maybe Mantis, but like Mantis and Incinerate go off when they play a unit, so does this one. Just having face down traps doesn't happen. You're almost never going to see 2 face down traps, even with a trap deck. This is just really bad. You know, I'm putting it down here. It's a meme card. Maybe if it was like 4 base power, so if you had 1 trap, it could be a 7, maybe, but no. I'm putting it here. Trickster is pretty good. One of those like kind of inconspicuous cards. You play it and moves, infuses. The infuse will do a damage right away, because the deploy goes off before the game checks if the card's on the battlefield or not. It'll see you played an elf, do the 1 damage right away. So it plays for 5. And then each time you play an elf, it does 1 damage. That is a 1 per turn engine. It's kind of capped like Giant Slayer is, but this is a 4 Persian card. And the movement is actually useful sometimes. You can snipe stuff with this. Certain decks don't want their stuff getting moved. This can just move it. And funnily enough, if the opponent plays something behind a defender, you can just move it out with Trickster. So that's sometimes just game winning. But overall, it's just a good solid card. Commando, kind of the same deal. Commando, this is only really in the Deadeye decks. Same with this, though. They both kind of fulfill the same spot of a pretty good 4% card that gives value over time. And I think I'll actually give this good. Commando maybe only deserves the okay. It's between the two. You know what? I think I will go with the... Sorry about that. I'm apologizing to you guys for hitting that. And also, the cats got upset when I bumped the table there. But anyway, I think I'll just knock this down to okay. Yeah, we'll go with okay. Not bad, but I probably wouldn't push for it. Saboteur, though, now this is a really good card. Do I want to put this in excellent? Let's look at what else we have here. No, I think I like good. With your Deadeye deck, with Angus, this is an 8 for 4 because it will just spawn a 4-power Deadeye. Very good synergies by making 2 cards. Very good value. Very strong effect. I think good is probably where it belongs. And this is Brigade again, is it? Sure is. Let me fix that real quick. Just go in here. Probably won't bother cutting this one out because it'll be really quick. Drop that there. Remove it. We're all set. Anyway, on to Dragoon. Dragoon is alright, I would say. Mostly used in movement-heavy decks to give you a movement option. That's 4 for 4. The 6 for 4, when you boost your own card, is not enough value. You really need to get something out of the movement. So I would say it's only okay. Maybe a 1 of. Maybe like in a movement-heavy deck you'd play this, but I think overall probably okay is where it belongs. I think for moving enemy cards, Trickster's just better. Because Trickster does that 1 damage each turn, as well as the 1 when you play it because of the infuse going off for seeing the Trickster. and it can go behind defenders and stuff. And usually you're going to want to move whatever they played last anyway. So it's not like the Trickster only moving the last card matters, because you're not going to wait 3 turns and decide, oh, now I want to move their card. You're going to say, oh, I want to move that card and move it right away because it's row locked or something. So I think Trickster's just better. Officer's okay too, though. Obviously, it's a bonded card. You wouldn't have one of it, but it's not bad. Like, the problem with all of these, though, is just you'd rather make them off of Harvest and backup plan. That being said, you can get extra bonded triggers by playing this with those, so something to consider. It's 2 damage or 2 boost, which is mediocre, and then it has, well, it's a little below average, and you have both effects if it's bonded, which is actually kind of nice, but it's just not really worth it, I think. Once again, quick fix here. Take off this extra Saboteur from when I didn't get buffed. Back down here to Saboteur. Pretty sure that one's Saboteur and the other one was Sapper. Let's make sure we got that right. We, in fact, got them backwards. This one is Sapper. Anyway, though, 4 for 4 with Purify. Pretty good. Pretty good. If you want to Bronze Purify in Scoia'tael, you're going to run this. It does require Elf Synergy to purify the opponent's stuff, but it's a pretty good card. This Bronze Purify is pretty nice. The thing is, Peller is better unless you're in Devotion. That's what holds this back. Well, how do we consider that? But this is an elf, so you could thin it out with your Saskia Commander. I'm putting it in okay. If there's only Peller consideration, I'm putting it in okay. However, Heist really wants multiple Purifies, like a whole bunch. And this is one way to do it. I'm putting okay. I think Peller's better, unless you're in Harmony. Next up, oh, this card's bad. What if being 4 provisions fix it? If so, I'll put it in weak. Yeah, maybe. All right, we'll put it in weak. This is either +1 for each elf in hand or +1 for each elf in its row. The elf in hand is usually better going first. You play this. You have 7 elves. It's 9 for 5. Okay. It's okay. Usually, though, with elves, you have traps and stuff and specials. So you don't usually get that many points is the problem. I think it needs to be a 4. Watcher of the Valley is all right. You kind of play it in hand buff to have another payoff card. Just because there's not that many. But I don't think it's that great. Next up, we have Waylay. Very good card. 6 for 4, 3 damage, spawns the Deadeye. 7 for 4, most of the time though, because you have Angus. As we said, 7 for 4, it's probably like the good baseline for a card, for being like a good, decent card that you consider playing. And it spawns a token, which is nice. Works great with Simloss and Vanadane. Obviously, you can make extra copies there. Should mention something else with Simloss as well. With the Waylays out here, because we've had people ask it in comments many times. Simloss plays all copies of a card. If a card is playing something, it doesn't matter if the card could not normally be played. So, for example, you normally can't play Waylay on an open board because you have nothing to target. If Simloss's text, which it does, says play all the Waylays out of your deck, well, you say you pick if you're bronze, he'll force play the Waylays and spawn the Deadeyes, even though there's no units for them to hit. That's just how playing cards from tutors works in the game. All cards are like that. For example, in like Warriors, if you have play a raid and you choose War of Clans, it'll still force play the War of Clans. So that's why the Simloss Waylays is really good, and you can't avoid it by not playing units, which is something I would otherwise definitely be doing because I think that's funny. And last up, we have Whisper of Dol Blathanna. 7 provisions should tell you it's strong, and it is. This is, I think, the best card, best bronze in the Whisperer deck. We'll say the Alzur deck. Orbs come back and make a bunch of these is the idea. I think this is the good card. I think orbs are just required. But yeah, each time you play a special, spawns a copy of itself. You absolutely love to see this off of Bountiful Harvest. It's also veiled, so it's very hard to deal with. So, very strong card, I would say. Very good. But very specific in what you want to play it in. And that should do it for the Scoia'tael tier list. Let's just look it over real quick. Probably going to have some changes to make. Let's look at the golds first here. Erlerin might be a bit generous here, but I really think it is that good. Ciaran is so flexible. Like, some of these cards are up here because they're incredibly good in what they do, and some are in here because they're just so flexible across the faction. Like Ciaran, I think I'll leave Ciaran here. Maybe Erlerin deserves to go down a tier. It really helps with the deck, though. Yeah, we'll drop her down one. I think I'm happier with that. I still think Ciaran stays here. Yeah, those are the golds. Happy with those. Bronzes. Maybe you're in Generous Antharian, but I think it is that good. Everyone always has to kill it. Seems good. Good cards. Maybe Deception goes up. I think this is on the edge. A lot of these cards are going to be on the edge of the tiers, by the way. Right, because it's how tiers work. There's one card in golds that's at the bottom. For example, say we did this. This card's almost as good as this top card here, but it's just how I chose to separate them. There's a lot of flexibility. Some days I might think it's better, some days worse. But as far as the rest here, I think we're pretty happy with these. Again, like this is on the edge, but I'm almost set that for everything. I think I'm pretty happy with these here. Maybe Chariot deserves to go up a tier. That's the only one I'm concerned with here. Maybe Chariot goes up. I think I will move Chariot up. Yeah, I will move Chariot up. In hindsight. It's really flexible is what does it. Okay, I think some of these early ones we might have been too harsh on. Francesca's the one I'm considering moving up here. I don't see her very much, though. We'll leave her here. I don't see her being played. I actually think Catwish is probably a good card. Move him up. I don't really need to alphabetize these. I actually think this card deserves to be good. Specifically because in things like Devotion Midrange, it's a 2 of, because it's really strong there. Yeah, I'll move that up. I like that better. I really didn't want to put all the traps in niche, but I think we'll just end up doing this. Yeah, I think we'll end up just doing this. I didn't want to do this for Angus. Yeah, we'll just do that. I think that makes the most sense. I think this makes the most sense. We'll still leave this one here, though, because it's still weak. This one, too, I guess. Maybe Bomb might deserve to be up here. I'll move that one up. Probably deserves to be up there. Bomb Dragons is pretty popular, at least from what I see. Sticky Situation is actually as good on its own, which is why it's not going in here with these traps. I think these are the 3 traps you normally play. Sticky Situation and these 3. Which these 3 will be niche because you have to play them for Angus. These 2 I think aren't that great, so they probably stay in weak. Unless you're specifically playing all-in traps, but that deck's so unpopular, I'm not really considering it too much. And I think Eldane, I think we're being cruel to our boy Eldane here. He's not our boy because I don't like trap decks, but I think he probably deserves to be up here. Anyone who waited, anyone who commented before this, don't worry, we put Eldane up where he deserves later. Overcoming the bias. I think we can't, in our right minds, put Hostage Taker up here, but not Eldane, because they do go in the same deck. I think the rest of this makes sense. Yeah, happy with these. Happy with these. Yeah, all right, that's the Scoia'tael tier list, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.